pretty much died out when the 9/11 money program terminated after its 10th year. And so we didn't get there in time. But there is mass preservation grants available. There's preservation money available that could be used to help mitigate the cost of renovating the old town hall. So the idea is attractive because it offers a potential for a lower cost alternative, providing it's done adequately and the police department needs are fulfilled. And the other question that hasn't been answered is, okay, if we've got a reduced footprint, and if my memory serves me correct, we were looking at about 22,000 square feet, of which about one half of it was fire station, the other half was public safety and communications. If we're talking about 11,000 square foot building now, can it be fitted on the level portion of the land behind the old fire station? Can we dodge the bullet on all kinds of very expensive site work that we would have had to do to site a 22,000 square foot building? So if we can put a fire complex up there and avoid some or all of the site work, which these studies should be able to tell us, maybe we'll have a completely different picture in front of us in a couple of months, that we can make a determination to which way we want to move forward. By the same token, if we can find a piece of land, of the land that we've been looking at in the center of town, and put a combined complex there, I think we should really push to do it. 2 complexes, combined complexes, have been built in the last 5 years in the immediate area. Kaleb and Enoch were the architects for both of them. Granby was about $5 or $6 million, population same as ours. And Ashburnham, I've gone and visited and toured both of these places. I know prices go up, construction costs. Did they double? You know, I mean, that's, can we do something here at a lower cost and still get essentially what we're looking for and what these other towns have now? So these are all unanswered questions, which I think these studies that we're going to do, that we're talking about doing, that we need funding for, will provide answers to.
Ed Gwinner, Golden Circle. When we were talking, or when you were talking about the land in back of the fire station, I questioned whether it would perk or not. Now, we haven't seen any, or I haven't, and I've asked several times to see the perk results from that property that we spent, if I'm wrong, correct me, $30,000 for. I know what they hit down the bottom, and I think I made the comment here that if, which we would have to blast, I said that would be goodbye to the fire station, the old fire station over there. And I mean, I'd like to see
No debate there.
What?
No debate there. No argument. If they blasted behind that building would come down.
Then I just don't get what you're trying to do here. I mean, the Historical Society wants to save the fire station, which I can understand. But is there perk test results anywhere around?
Yes.
Who did the perk?
What's his name? He's out of Westhampton. I don't remember off the top of my head. No, it wasn't Jimmy Gracia. I can't remember the guy's name, but the guy out of Westhampton was hired to do it. He did the perk test. The records are all with the Board of Health.
They weren't the last I knew.
Then I don't know what to tell you, but I do have copies of them electronically. But they were recorded at the Board of Health's office because they're the ones that witnessed it.
Thank you.
It passed.
I'd like to see the records.
Then I would suggest you go to the Board of Health and ask them for a copy.
I've done it.
Mike Beeler, 88 High. I know squat about public safety complexes, but my impression from what I've seen and heard over the last year or so of this discussion is that the Select Board and Public Safety Complex Committee concur that the best solution for this town, both from a public policy or public benefit perspective and ultimately over the long-term financial perspective, is an integrated public safety complex. So I was at the town meeting, whenever it was, 6 months ago, where the plus minus $10 million plan got blown out of the water. And I believe I voted against it. That said, I voted against it because you guys did a terrible job of selling it.
Thank you.
No, I'm just,
I know.
you
We're
know,
friends.
I'm sure you've heard this. I'm sure I'm not the first person to say this.
By the way, it was about a year and a half ago.
Jeez.
It wasn't
That's my
last,
daughter.
It wasn't last
That's
time.
why my daughters are so much taller. So I look at this and say, if the best thing for the town on all public policy and fiscal measures is to have an integrated public safety complex, sell it better. Don't walk away from the right solution. Just work harder. And if you need help, I'm happy to chip in. I'm happy to drag other people to chip in, and just sell it to the town. I mean, people will do the right thing if you show that you have heard their concerns, have made a good faith effort to respond to their concerns, and make the case that this is something that has to be done. That, as it were, that the solution you're pushing is the least painful one for the town. So that's it.
I hear what you're saying, Mike, but I don't necessarily agree that if they need to do a clear job, I understand, but I don't think that they're going to accept it if it was clearer. There was a price tag on it that just nobody was going to accept it. And one of the reasons for that, I got on the committee at the tail end of that, so when I first got on the committee a month or so before it was presented, $7 million was thrown up in the air. All of a sudden, the final number comes out at 10.5, going to the town meeting. I think two of the issues are, one, state of Massachusetts, we have to use prevailing wage, which is the highest in the nation. I work with it every day. You have to deal with prevailing wage. So that always takes the cost up here. But the other part was, and rightfully so, the architect went to the police department, went to the fire department and said, tell me what you want. Tell me everything you'd really like in this complex. And if somebody came to me and said that, that's just what I'm going to do. I want this, I want that. So I think that was a reality check for us. Now we're going back, obviously talking to the police and the fire, saying, okay, what do you really need in this complex so that we can make it reasonably cost and present it to the town? So I think that's, from going to that mansion on the hill to a good, solid complex that'll keep us going 20 years down the road. So I think that's where we're going to be able to take some of the cost. And that site development, if I remember, it was $1 million just for the site development. I personally don't like the site. I never did like the site. Yeah. But we sent a letter out, and the letter was just asking people, saying, we have an interest in getting land for the safety complex. If you're interested in selling, please contact us so we can discuss it. I mean, it wasn't any pressure, wasn't anything, and we didn't get a whole lot. I think we got one or two, and one of them that we got wanted to sell us 40 acres or 50 acres or something like that. I mean, it'd be a nice backyard for the complex, but I don't think we can afford it. So I think we need to sell it in a size that makes sense to people and a cost that makes sense to people, and we need to do a better job of selling it. And I think the police and the fire need to be there in force also to help us sell it. I think it was a learning lesson for everybody, for sure.
So I actually think we I think you started by saying we were not in agreement, but I think we actually agree completely. So what I'm hearing you say is that that 10-point-X million dollar proposal had elements of gold plating in it. And that may not be the right term, but
Right, yeah.
was above and beyond what was some minimum necessary to get the job done.
We all go through that in life.
Okay, so my
you know,
case would be that if the committee and the select board come up with a modified proposal that's responsive to the town's concerns, that people will be, I think the town will be far more receptive to that.
I agree, and the police and the fire representatives have been at the meetings, and we've talked about that last couple of meetings, so I think we're all on board. And whether we have it together or we have it separate, I think everybody would agree together is better, but can you sell it together? Or do you have to separate it? And that was a lot of conversation at one of our meetings between the police and the fire and the rest of the board members, because neither the police or the fire want to pit themselves against each other. They want to work together, you know. So it's tough when you say, if we only had one, which should it be? So that's not a place to put either of them in. So,
Okay, thank you.
thanks, Mike.
So if I'm understanding this, at this point in time, we have two questions in front of this committee and the Board of Selectmen. The first question is, do we move forward and try to establish a complex? Or do we move forward and fracture this and work as the police department or building as one and the fire department as another? Because that's going to have an impact on how we proceed with funding and direction at town meeting.
Personally, option 3 of looking at both of them at the same time, up to a point, till we can figure out cost differences, because I'd prefer to see both options presented at a town meeting if possible, or at least to the public at information sessions beforehand.
So then what we're at this point of taking and funding a study for the old town hall / police department and looking to fund the establishment of a fire station is the direction that you're saying we should continue tracking?
People are going to say, don't spend $30,000 on looking at the old town hall because we don't know if we're going that way. But I've been doing this construction long enough to know you've got to spend some money to know which way is the best way to go. And if you're talking about a $7 or $8 million project and you spend $30,000, $40,000 determining that, that's all part of the project in my mind. But there may be people who have a different opinion.
That's true. Is it possible, you have a special town meeting coming up, is it possible to draft an article that asks, are the voters in favor of a single facility, an integrated facility, or another option or alternative? I'd like to see the voters get it before you spend a lot of money. Money is not easy to come by, whether it's for a study or for architectural services. It costs money, and I understand, but I think the people of Southampton will get behind a proposal that is well thought out, that they can easily understand, that they have an opportunity to participate in more than at just 1 or 2 meetings. I think we have to bring our town together for more discussions. But one way might be with an article at an upcoming special town meeting to at least put it out there so you have a much more diverse opinion at that town meeting. That would be a suggestion. My other question is, I don't know what the long-term master plan says. Does the master plan in any way address this? Master plan should be about a vision. Where are we going for the town of Southampton? Has that been addressed? Do you know?
Just a thought, Barbara. If we went to the town meeting and asked the question, do you want a complex or do you want 2 individual buildings, my guess is the first person at the podium is going to say, how much does each cost before I vote? They're going to want to know what it costs before they make a vote. So not having financial,
You're going to want option C as well.
well, that's what I'm saying, but I'm saying, I'm going with you at the podium, Barbara. So I think we need some kind of cost estimates to let people know, because I couldn't vote which one I wanted. If they cost the same, I'd say the complex, but I don't know that. So that's why I think we need to have some kind of costs attached to them, reasonable costs.
And I think everybody in the room tonight said, ideally, would like to have a complex, but if that doesn't work because we can't get the land, we can't get the money, then...
I haven't given up on the land. No way have I given up on that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm just saying, I think that if we ask voters, my guess is most people will say we want to combine one, but it depends on so many other things that cost money to find out.
And
That's a good point. That's a valid point.
And one thing the committee struggled with, and I don't know how many people know it, but insurance, your insurance costs for your house are related to where you are in relationship to the fire department. So if the fire department's right here, there's a radius around there that your insurance policies are less. So if we take the fire department and put it over here, this radius moves with you. So people over here, which would be me in this case, which is fine as an example, my insurance rates are going to go up because I'm out of that, what's the district called, or? iOS. So we have a concern there that we don't all of a sudden change people's insurances too. And a lot of people probably don't realize that. Because if we go, I mean, down near the Westfield line, there's some land, but you're taking that whole center and shifting it way down there, and all of a sudden insurance policies are going to go up a lot higher. So we're considering stuff like that too.
Well, obviously, it needs to be where your public center is in terms of where's your school, where is your public buildings. That kind of thing is very important. Historically, the town of Southampton has supported overrides. We've done overrides for the school, we've done roofs, we've done computers, we've done a renovation right here. We held on to this building for a very long time when people said, sell it, sell it, sell it. And I would say, what do you want to sell it to? You want a used car lot here? Many people I said that to. And because we had the tenacity to hold on to it, we've ended up with a very nice town hall that serves the people very well. So it's been my experience that a well-thought-out, developed plan, articulated to the people, they will get behind it and support it. And there's no question in my mind that the people of Southampton recognize the shortcomings of the existing fire station and the existing police department.
And also, there's the opportunity we talked about during the election time about the debt that's rolling off from Hampshire as well as Norris.
That's
so
right.
So that's this year and next year. So we have something to give back to the voters saying your taxes won't go up, they'll just remain the same. So I think...
Well, I think they will go up because...
Well, but I mean, nothing
yeah.
like skyrocketing.
You won't put in that kind
there's
of a facility
opportunity.
with no reimbursement. When this school debt goes off, with that goes the reimbursement,
Right. And we'd have to
that comes from the
reboot the
state.
debt. It
Yes.
doesn't roll, but...
Yeah.
Virginia wants at least a minute.
Okay.
Sorry, Virginia.
Virginia Ahart, 27 Fulmer Road. In this case, the chair of the committee that has been asked, Community Preservation, to fund the study of Old Town Hall. It needs to go forward, and not just because of the police station. I can't imagine a police station that would use all of that building. We do not have additional other space for a lot of creative kinds of things that could be done in part of that building. We've heard complaints that the senior center isn't big enough. We've heard suggestions that we'd like to have an area where you could have art shows and things like that. That building over there will not be completely filled with police. We need to go ahead with that study. Whether or not it's going to be a police station down the line. And there are additional benefits, at least for going forward with that study that we were asked and Community Preservation voted to put on the warrant.
Robert, you're going to be the last speaker because we're going to need to move on to the rest of the selectmen's meeting.
And I will be very brief. Robert Floyd, 15 East Street, and I'm not weighing in on either alternative. I can't because my position is town moderator. But what I observed at the last attempt, there was no plan for the old town hall with the safety complex proposed. And many people felt, why spend money when you're not taking care of what you already have? So wherever you do go, I believe you need to take a look at your infrastructures and have a master plan, have a something to sell it, but to present it to the
It
public.
seems to me they're talking cultural center.
I can't say, but
But
I hear
that's
that.
what it sounds like.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So I think the Public Safety Committee, jointly with the Board of Selectmen, need to take a position on these issues. So I'll entertain an article or a motion.
I'm confused on what position you'd like us to take.
Well, we need to know, are we looking at moving forward with doing these studies? Because if we're not, then we're looking at funding another review and design of a complex.
A complex or individual.
So right now, there's a warrant to, for funding the study of the Old Town Hall, which would be paid for by community preservation funds. And the fire department, I'm not sure about the purpose of doing that one if it's not going to be used in its existing form, and that comes out of free cash, if it's
If it-
certified and voted by the voters.
Right, and that study would be basically shrinking the public safety complex down to being just a fire station. That's why you have to do that study again, because you need to, because all that's going to change. And it could be that that land footprint is capable of accommodating that building. Yes, Mr. Warren.
You're still waiting for a motion, right?
I am. I'm trying to do is close the door to general public discussion and let the committees have the final discussion.
Well, maybe I'm out of order then, but we have two articles, Article 12 and Article 13, in the warrant for the special town meeting for those two studies. I personally am not ready to say that a unified solution is I'm not ready to make that decision. I think we ought to look and see what the options are. I agree with John. If the numbers dramatically say separation is the best path forward, dollars and cents wise, and it's really significant, I don't know how we can ignore that. But on the other hand, if there's no significant difference,
Then we're back
then
to,
we know
right.
where we want to go. I don't think we have that kind of information this 5 minutes to say, pick one path or another.
Okay. The reason I raised the question is because those articles are in a draft town meeting articles. They're not approved by the select board. Ultimately, this board's going to have to decide if those articles are going to be there for the town meeting. And I want to get basically a feel back for myself as well as the rest of us, is are we on the right course? It sounds in your mind that we are.
I agree that we should move forward with these studies. I feel that after we've done those and they're complete, we got something we can really sink our teeth in, and then we can come back to the town and say, this is the way we're going forward.
Okay.
And we did our homework. We didn't do our homework on the first go-round. I think we got to do our homework this time.
Before you sit down, I want to make sure I come up with this in a good way. But from the last committee meeting, I got the sense that maybe the committee wanted to look at using somebody else for looking at the study or design work, because the person we were using, I think, was pretty much firm on X amount of dollars per square foot, and that wasn't going to get us where we needed to go. So maybe by looking at a different person to look at it from a different angle would give us different ideas. Am I saying that right without?
So if we get the funding at town meeting, the committee and select board can open up an RFP
Okay.
and,
You can go to bid on these.
Yeah, I think that would be important.
That's when you have that discussion.
Yeah, we'll get some fresh ideas, I think.
yeah, but at this point, there's no money for us to work with. so
Right,
it's-
yeah, but I just wanted, going through the process.
Do we need a motion then if they're already on the?
Well,
they're
I'd
already-
like to make one comment here. Regardless of which direction we go, I think if we end up doing a study, I think it's very important to have, part of that study is, what would it take to weather tight that building? That building is going downhill very rapidly. If this process takes another year or two, the costs of bringing it back up to standards is gonna be much more. So what, if we do a study, could part of that study be, what would it take to at least make that building weather tight while we're making these
We
decisions?
put an RFP together, we put that in the
Yeah, that
RFP,
should be part of the,
plus the preliminary work that's been done with Barbara's other study gives you the baseline indication of what needs to be addressed already, so. All right, so I guess we don't really need any motion or anything at this point. We seem to be on a track of where we want to go. Any other discussion on the public safety building issues?
I think at this town meeting, we need public safety committee there as well as all of us, so we can all stand up and talk about it. Because if people don't show up, it's going to show, I think, the wrong attitude. And I hate to say, I love town meeting, but if you only get 80 people there, 75 people, they can change the vote either way. So we need to make sure there's plenty of people there to listen, and they can make their own decisions when they get there.
and one other angle we can look at as well. I was on the original committee to determine whether the safety complex was needed. So we evaluated both buildings and looked at it from there. Now, we toured different stations, and I remember going to Granby, and Granby said we had X amount of dollars when we built this facility, and we planned for like a sally port for the police. They had certain things that they planned for, and they said, look, you know, if we ask the town for this much money, and then maybe in 2 or 3 years, we can go back and we can add on this. So maybe when you talk about having a safety complex for both, it doesn't have to be the whole thing all at once. Maybe you can break it off into phases. That's all I'm throwing out there.
Do I hear a motion to adjourn the Public Safety Selectmen's joint meeting, and we'll move on to the Selectmen's meeting?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye?
I hear nothing from the other people in the Public Safety Committee. Bill just stares at me.
You don't want me talking.
We just ask that the people in the room stay just for this next item.
Yes. Next item on the Board of Selectmen's agenda is the recognition of Kurt Beaujolais. Mr. Beaujolais, you have gone far beyond the role of being a volunteer on a committee in town. Your diligence and work ethic to try to accomplish the purchase of the Cook Road property for the benefit of both communities is acknowledged and appreciated. The 300 and something plus emails that you barraged my computer with is acknowledged at the fact that you were really focused on this thing and doing a lot of time in it. Kurt, you've been a friend with me for a long, long time, and I think the board just needs to say thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We had a tight timeline, Charlie, as you know, and we had some unexpected hurdles. But a lot of work had been done 2014, 15, 16 by both Easthampton and Southampton to pull together that project to purchase 25 acres on Cook Road, which is a regional aquifer. It benefits the drinking water of Easthampton and Southampton. It was important. The 350,000 was coming from Easthampton, 350,000 approximately from Southampton. We needed another third, we needed another $350,000 to make it happen. The first I heard of this project, my wife and I, Nancy, who I give credit to because she was a Cook Road orphan or Cook Road widow for a few months there.
I adopted him.
We were at my son's master's, defending his master thesis out in Oregon State University when the May 2016 town meeting occurred. And the first I really heard of the project is when my grandson Caden got up and spoke at the end of that town meeting. If you recall, a little 10-year-old boy went up to the front. That was my grandson. The original grant for the remaining $350,000 was not successful. So late in the game, the Water Commission, I'm a water commissioner in Southampton, was asked to submit the application and come up with $350,000. We got the approval May 11th of 2017. We had a list of things to get done, and it had to be done by June 30th of 2017. Mark Walmsley from Kestrel did an amazing job. I happen to be the Southampton part of it, seeing if we can nail down $350,000. As I said, unexpected hurdles came up. The town meeting you guys held quickly was crucial. So thank you.
Well, we thank you, because I, for one, know the amount of time you put into this, and it all came out the way it should be, and I think it's great. I mean, you know.
It's important things. You got things at present with the safety complex.
Yep.
You get through them, you look out the rearview mirror and they're done.
Yep.
Cook Road was one of those. My wife has me back now, so I don't have to.
Everything's back to normal.
So should we ask her if that's good, or?
I bet you are.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Now-
Does the board want to take a 5-minute break before we move into the meeting, potatoes of the meeting?
That's fine.
Sure.
All right, 5-minute recess. Hey, you bring pizza now. It's right there, man. All right.
Stick on the back, maybe fill up.
And
Yeah, I've got like an 8. Well, it seems like it's unless you're privy, right?
Right, exactly. I remember sitting over there looking at documents and feeling like they don't know what the heck we're talking about. They're just watching us talk, it's really frustrating. And then when you watch the meetings at home, it's hard to even see the documents. Right, exactly. It's irritating. It's more irritating. You're talking about their money, you can't understand what they're talking about. Hi, George. I'm fine. How are you? And so I had to change his socks and put his shoes on. And I forgot how much of a wise guy I am, and I make him laugh all the time. And you know it's not good to laugh after the operation. He's like, he's like, stop, don't even look at me. So much pain. I'm trying to keep up with her. This woman's amazing. I know, I've been trying to. I've been saying, you really need something. No, I tried. I never know what the rule is.
You could have a job like this. Oh, yes. No matter what you say, you have to understand and be polite. No. Even if you have no clue where it's coming from, you still got to be polite. Yeah.
We're gonna start again.
Oh, yeah. The pay is what brings my attention to everything. Okay, we're beginning the Selectmen's second part of the meeting. It's September 28th. It's about 6:40. All right, next thing on the agenda is appointments. We have an application from a Sharon Hart, 13 Belanger Road, for the Capital Committee. That seat has been vacant for a number of years. It would be nice to get somebody in there. So, Any,
So she requested to be on the
she
committee?
requested to be on.
Yeah. I have no issues.
I'd like to say something about that. So I was given, I had asked some questions about this particular committee, and the bylaws say that there are 5 members. And as of the town clerk's email a few days ago, there were 5 members listed as part of this committee, that there was no resignation that she's aware of, even though she verbally heard about it. So her understanding is that she has not received a letter of resignation from the chair. Is that, I mean,
The chair,
she sent me an email that had a list of 5 members that, according to the town clerk's office, are on this committee. The bylaws say that there are 5 members. Tim Huber?
Jim
Yes.
Huber, yeah.
Right, so there's no letter of resignation from him as being on this committee. I didn't realize it had been over a year, but that was the information Janine had given me.
Do you know that he did want to resign?
I was just asking questions, how many members, what do the bylaws say, who's on the committee right now? And she said she had heard hearsay that either he was resigning or whatever, but she received no written notice of a resignation.
he advised the committee over a year ago that he no longer wanted to be on that committee. Nobody followed up to see if he actually sent the memo to the town clerk. But of all the meetings we've had, and he's been copied on them and all that, he's never attended a meeting.
Do we have any procedure where if somebody either verbally says they're resigning and doesn't submit a written resignation, or if somebody, is there any procedure for,
To my knowledge, there isn't.
oh, I think there should be.
I agree. In fact, the new drafts that are coming through the bylaw committee will have that.
If we can appoint, why can't we rescind?
I don't see why we can't.
Well, we appoint based on an application, expressed interest. I also think we should have a mechanism for letting the public know about committee appointments, such as our website, that there should be a period of time where it be posted that there be, because I think we got into trouble with the town administrator search committee by having a lot of expressed interest and then selecting, basically, perception was people that we knew, so to speak. And I just think that if we had a better mechanism for letting the public know that there were committee appointments, I think that would be better than just word of mouth, oh, by the way, there's a committee appointment available, are you interested? So that's my opinion.
I agree, and this is why we need a town administrator,
Yeah.
which, do we know where that is advertising-wise?
I know that the dates have been closed and they have applicants and they're in the process.
Yeah.
So, but they're in the preliminary process.
Okay, so the application's
Our
date's been closed, okay.
That's been closed. The fear I have with all of this is having committees that have people that decide they no longer want to participate. They don't submit a letter of resignation. And if you take it like the capital committee with 5 individuals, if you ended up with 3 of them that decided that they didn't want any part of that anymore, that committee wouldn't function at all.
I'm saying more that a committee should, if someone doesn't show up, or they verbally tell someone they don't want to be a part of it, then they're given a certain number of days to submit a written notification, and then if they don't, then they are considered to be off the committee. We post for a certain amount of days a position available on a committee, and within 10 days, we take and review the applications of people who are interested in being on the committee, that it ends up being less than a month. I mean, right now, it just seems very informal and not particularly well communicated.
I agree with you, but I think this is a town administrator's job. I mean, I don't think we need to be talking about this at every meeting, committees like this. That's why when the town administrator comes in, this person can do all of that and follow up, because that person will be here every day.
I don't see this as
Yeah.
our, well, here's our.
I'm not suggesting that this was a job that we would do. I'm suggesting that it might be process that the town would take that would affect all committees with their appointments. People are sworn in, and if they don't show up, then we should have a procedure to follow so that they're off the committee after a certain period of time or whatever.
The bylaw committee is
Yeah.
drafting that.
Okay.
If you reviewed some of the drafts that have come through,
Mm-hmm.
they are acknowledging and addressing it. The question here is, we have somebody that's interested in being on the committee.
Mm-hmm.
You've now pointed out the fact that there isn't a vacancy because of the fact that the individual hasn't formally resigned.
Right, we have 5 sworn-in members of the capital committee, and the bylaws say that there are 5 people.
And with that, we shouldn't be appointing somebody on that committee. So I think what we need to do is have the town administrator contact the individual that stated that they are no longer there and get a letter of resignation. And table any appointments till the next selectmen's meeting.
A letter, a text, or an email, I think,
Something.
in this day and
Yeah,
age is
something in
fine.
writing.
Yeah.
Something.
Yep.
That work for you?
Yep.
Okay.
Want to do that?
Yeah.
All right, then let's move on to the next one. I'm assuming one of us will advise the town administrator to do this next week.
Would you like me to do that?
If you like.
Sure.
You know.
And can somebody get back to Sharon, just let her know what's going on?
Yeah.
You want to do that? or you want-
Sure.
Okay.
The next one is the Emergency Management Director, EMD, and Emergency Response Coordinator, ERC. Here's another example of an email that said, "Take me off the list." The individual went into the town administrator's office, dropped the keys in front of the town administrator about, a month ago or so. There is no formal letter of resignation.
Well, the email in this case is something.
Yeah, I mean, there's at least an email saying, "Take me off the list."
But we just got that.
Yeah, we got that 2 weeks ago or so. So what happens with emergency management is if there is no emergency manager, it falls to the select board to be the emergency manager. Being chair, it falls to me anyways, because it's inherent. So my thought was, if you wanted to appoint me as the emergency manager for 6 months or whatever, just until we can sort this out, at least we'd have some focal point in town. But,
Yeah, I mean, you have the background, obviously, of the 4 of us.
I mean, I was on the original state emergency management team for the public health side.
Was that 1893?
It was 1893, it was a very good year.
So it was Don Schneider who resigned in this position, and he was on the fence a lot, and he made it clear in the last month that he is no longer interested and dropped off the key. So I'll make a motion to appoint Charlie Kinnicky as the Emergency Management Director.
The interim, or do you need an interim?
It's whatever you guys like. I mean, the reality is I don't care. You want to appoint me for
I
3
guess
years.
the
It makes no difference because,
I'll
it's like yesterday with the horse up on the second floor. I still ended up with the horse on the second floor.
I'll second it for the discussion. Is it your thought that you want to continue in this position, or just bridge the gap until we find somebody?
I'd like to continue this. I did this as a career for
Well,
some.
that's why I didn't say interim, because
Yeah.
you're extremely qualified to do this. So that's why I said I would make a motion to appoint you in that position if you're willing.
Okay, and I'm fine with
So
that.
people know there was a horse that got into the second floor of a barn, and it took the combined efforts of a lot of wonderful people in this town to get the horse downstairs.
He ran up the stairs but would not come down.
You got to see the pictures
You
to
have to see
believe
the
it.
pictures.
No horse sense.
Wait a minute.
Yeah, you can lead a horse to the second floor, but
But you
you
can't
can't make
take
him come down.
Hey, we all had our shot here. Why don't you take the
Would you-
vote?
Do I hear a motion?
You have a motion and a second.
Second?
Yeah, you have that too.
Yeah.
All right, and this is for both the EMD and ERC, and that's important because your EMD has to also have that position because the federal government doesn't recognize the EMD, the state government does, so this way you cover both situations,
Okay.
especially if you're going to have to talk to the FEMA group with the MEMA group.
That's why you're the person, because you
Yes.
know what you're talking about.
And no one else does. All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Thank you, I think. Okay, liaison, assessor's office. There seems to have been some discussion about this and everything else. Sometimes we switch liaisons from this office anyways, time changes and all the rest of that. Do we have someone on this board that would like to be the liaison to the assessor's office?
I'm willing to do that, if Jim is willing to switch and take one of the ones that I'm liaison to.
Yes, I can do Board of Health if you'd like.
Okay.
Do Board of Health?
Yep, that sounds fine.
Do I hear a motion to do it? Done deal?
fine.
All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous, okay, so there was the switch.
And the chair is, can you just remind me, because I'll send an email to them.
Ben Hogan?
No, no, no.
The
no.
chair of the assessors, Doric
Assessors.
Dodds.
Oh.
Is it
Doric Dodds,
Doric?
right,
I think
okay,
it's
right.
Doric.
Gord Dawes,
He's the chair?
Yes.
He and Francine and Ron Lauren are
Right.
all in the Board of Assessors. But I wasn't sure if you knew who the chair was. Is it Derek?
Pretty sure it's Doric.
I think so too, yeah.
That's just his first year, that's why I was
Yeah, it was
asking.
First year for
a completely
First year,
new
all of them.
board.
Oh,
Right.
This is, yeah. Reports of the selectmen, select board? I have
Bob?
nothing.
Bob,
I didn't hear a word from Bob.
very quiet tonight.
He is. Old business. Zach Holt, net metering. I like this, by your name it says page 10.
All right, Zach Holt, Hampshire Power, back to discuss net metering credits from a biogas project in Granville. So, as I mentioned to you folks when we signed up for, or when you signed up for electricity supply with us, I'd have a way to save you about 15% off of your electricity costs. And by doing that, you'll also be supporting a dairy farm in Massachusetts, and helping the environment. So what I brought with me today is a proposal. Hand out each.
Thank you.
Have you sent this electronically to the town administrator?
No, not yet.
Okay. Has the agreement gone to the town administrator?
No, they'll be going tomorrow. So the option is working with the town out of Granville, a dairy farm out of Granville, Rockwood Farm, and they have over 600 head of cattle and are producing tons of waste every day. They're going to be using this waste in an anaerobic digester and burning it on site, the methane gas, and creating energy. The energy gets sent back to the grid, and it's monitored by ISO New England and tracked, so that the net metering credits, as they're created, are able to be distributed to towns. So this is specifically set up for cities and towns, municipalities. What we're able to do is cover 90% of your current usage. If your usage fluctuates because of energy efficiency measures, anything you do, that's okay. We can adjust every 6 months what your need will be. So although it is a 10-year agreement, it is something that can fluctuate based on your need. And if you go up, if you add another building or two to the town, it's okay. As long as there's room to add, which I expect there will be, there's always going to be fluctuation that we'll be able to accommodate. And if we're covering 90% of the usage, saving 15% would save the town almost $9,000, it would be $8,800 annually on electricity costs. Now the way this works is that you're actually purchasing the net metering credits. So you purchase the credits, you only purchase what you use, and it will reduce your electric bill or electric bills significantly. And so you'll get the same Eversource electric bill at the end of the month. We'll just imagine that it's one bill. That it comes in, it's significantly reduced, and then you're billed separately from HCG, and the total of which will be a guaranteed savings. And that'll be the 15% savings.
Can you just explain what you meant by the 10-year agreement? Because I think that we had signed the 3-year, right?
Yes, it is separate from supply.
Okay.
So they are two very different things. It does work with any supply agreement. So my hope is that you're with us for many, many years for supply. But if you do move on, if you do choose another supplier, that's okay. It works with any supply agreement, so it would not be a problem for a future supplier. And just like if you had net metering credits from solar, if there's damage, if there's a storm, if there's wind, hail, whatever, that knocks out the facility temporarily, then there's no penalty, there's no cost to you to repair it or rebuild it, but you would be down, and so you wouldn't be seeing those net metering credits until it's up and running. But it's to the advantage of the developer and the farm to get that thing back up and running as soon as possible, because they'll be losing out on quite a bit of money. So,
Question.
yes.
It's a 10-year contract.
Mhm.
Does the general statutes allow us to sign a 10-year contract?
Yes. Chapter 25A allows you to sign a contract procuring energy services
Okay.
to expedite the process, and therefore not requiring an RFP, but an RFQ.
What was the statute again?
25A.
25A.
That's chapter 25, section A?
Yes.
Okay.
It is written just chapter 25A. But,
That's it, huh?
Yes.
No sections.
Right.
It's early in the game. I think we should have council review this before we go any further with it.
Yeah.
I like the concept.
Mhm.
It's not a negative, but I want to see council review this and get back to us and tell us if there's any concerns that they're aware of.
Absolutely. No problem at all.
That work for you?
Sounds good.
And just for your information, you asked about who else is doing supply with us for these net metering credits from this Agrid project. We are working with Granville, with Hatfield, Hatfield Schools separately.
You've got quite a shopping list of towns that have signed on and entities that have signed on.
Yes.
I understand that. That's why I'm reaching the point where I think legal counsel needs to review the contract.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I just quickly went to 25A, and I'm looking at section 10A, and it says it has to be competitively bid, so, and I've used 25A working for the state, and there was a lot of discretion in there, so I think we need to get a read on it.
Okay.
Great.
It's a positive night, not a negative night.
Hey, that's all right, yeah, it's a step in the right direction, it's fine with me, just wanted to, I know this would help the town, it would save money, but yeah, you need to do your research and.
Is it 15% guaranteed, or is it?
Yes, so technically what it is, it's a 15% guaranteed savings off of the net metering credit. And from this proposal I've given you, you can see the value of the net metering credit is about 10 cents, and that itself can fluctuate depending on the utility company.
So that's 10 cents a kilowatt hour? Is that how it works?
No, it's not supply either. It is.
Separate the smoke and mirrors and tell us how it works.
The way it works is it saves you 15% off of the net metering credit, which is what you would be purchasing if you were buying it directly from the utility company. But buying it through us and this biogas project it saves you the 15%
What if we
there.
didn't buy net metering credits and just paid normal rates?
I'm sorry?
What if we didn't buy net
Yep.
metering credits? We don't have to buy them, correct?
Absolutely, no, and you don't. No, most towns and businesses don't know about it or don't do it. But this is just an opportunity where you don't pay money up front, you don't pay service fees, and so there's no extra costs. It's just a straight 15% savings, as long as you're willing to deal with that second bill that comes in each month. And so that's what I always make sure folks know about, is that, yes, you're still going to get your Eversource bill, and you're going to get a second bill for the net metering credits.
From you folks?
Yes. We'll be administering the credits, so we'll be working with you on that.
You want to direct the town administrator to seek town council to review this?
I would, I think we have somebody with some experience waiting to say something here also, is that?
Like, oh,
Pardon me.
you have quite the knack tonight.
I do, don't I?
It's like,
To be honest, full disclosure, I do work for Eversource, so I'm not going to speak for or against the agreement. I'm just going to pose questions that the select board should ask, just to
Please.
cover all the bases. The metering, is the agreement demand-based? Meaning if you don't use a certain amount, are you charged a higher bill? That's a very good question to ask. Date the plant will be online, the schedule, the in-service date. If you're not going to receive those net metering credits until 2019, for instance, but you sign up next week, are you paying an inflated rate until 2019? Cost without the credit compared to your current bill? And then, actually, I had the 10-year term, Chapter 25A, because I kind of thought the same thing about the competitively bidding for those longer terms. So just some questions. There's probably others. You could probably find a lot of these questions online, too, to research it. But just be careful. It's a 10-year contract. You know, you always want to back out of it if you have the opportunity. Utility costs fluctuate. Usually never down, but you never know.
could happen.
Thank you.
And, do you know, answer any of these questions, Zach?
Yes, it will be coming online in the spring, but there isn't, of 2018, but there isn't an exact date yet because it's interconnection more than anything else, just waiting for the utility company to put everything together. The savings, I can't speak to the inflation part of it, but the savings itself is a guaranteed 15%. And so, yeah, it is a matter to understand what that means in terms of the net metering credit.
Is it demand-based?
No, so, right, if your usage goes way down or way up, that's okay. There's no penalty. You're still going to be saving the 15%. And so then we reevaluate it every 6 months. And again, if your usage goes way down, then we just adjust it on our end. It's no penalty halfway through or anything like that. It's just for us to maintain and monitor.
I'm assuming you provided us with this background information on Rockwood.
Correct.
Yeah, I think that's something that'd be nice to post to the website if we're going to go ahead with this, because it's pretty interesting reading.
Yes.
It's quite a large farm.
Yes, yeah. And the residual effect for the farm itself is very nice.
Yeah, and it's a family-run business, which is nice.
Mm-hmm.
Want to talk to Art about posting that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I have an electronic copy.
Can you send that to us?
Yeah, I'll do so those two things and the PDF.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, it's a PowerPoint presentation, but yeah, I can forward those.
When we get it, we'll ask Art.
No, we can convert it if we have to.
No, I have it, so it's very easy. Yeah.
Just send it to the select board.
Okay.
Okay, and copy the town administrator.
Okay.
All right.
Very good.
Good.
Thank you.
Okay. And a pause for a moment. Did the minutes taker get everything? Okay. It's all right. I just, when I saw us going 3 different ways at the same time, it was like, uh-oh. Yeah. Okay. Time to regroup again. All right, driveway regulations. Okay, we had the committee submit to us their recommendations. We held them out for 2 weeks. And we've reached a point now where we need to decide if we're going to adopt these regulations or send them back to committee, so on and so forth. I'm open up for discussion before we have a vote.
How you doing?
Hi. Dan Pellegrini, Crooked Ledge Road. Couple things I want to make a statement on. It was part of the committee until I was asked or needed to leave, and I think it was a good collaborative session, and we did a good job. One thing of concern that I've seen in the regulation that was posted, it's different than where it was when I last left, but it could have changed, is there's only one curb cut. The concern I had when I was on the committee with one curb cut is you've now eliminated circular driveways. And yeah, sure, it's an exception, but an exception, if you read the fine print in there, means that now it's got to be an engineered or possibly could be an engineered driveway if Randall or the highway superintendent decides that. So just a little concerned with that and the restrictiveness around the access to property. And then also, I want to remind the Board of Selectmen how we got here. It was going to go through, and then there was a petition that was signed by a bunch of people. I presented it, and that petition just clearly said, hey, if there's a need for this, why not bring it to town vote? And then you, Charlie, articulated, instead of going to town vote with nothing, let's form a committee. Let's come up with a good bylaw that we feel is good by a good representation, and then bring it to the town for vote. So that's all I want to do is remind the board of that decision, and would really like to see this as an article going to the town for vote, and would just ask that maybe it be adjusted before it goes there to allow at least 2 curb cuts so people can put circular driveways into their yard.
Remember what line that was?
Yeah, I got it right here.
I don't-
8.
8.
Okay, one lot.
And then I thought there was also something that we had in there about larger pieces of property, you know, away from building lots and being able to cut in there for backwoods or farm access. And
I guess my question is there anybody else here that was on that committee that can maybe address the issues?
Well,
I'd have to look at my notes, but did we change that after the single curb cut?
well, may I read it?
I didn't look at it online since it's been revised.
Let me
but
read what it actually
please,
says.
yeah.
Number 8, the number of curb cuts shall be limited to 1 per lot. The highway superintendent may permit additional curb cuts where deemed reasonable or is necessary to achieve, but does not conflict with other design standards. Now, the way I'm reading that is that if the highway superintendent sees that it's a, roundabout type, then he can allow it in and of himself.
Correct.
That's the way I'm reading it.
Yeah.
Concern I would have with that is exception-based. And if you also read in there, I believe it states that if it does go to an exception, because now that's an exception, the highway superintendent can also request engineered, stamped, and designed plans. So my concern is, again, something as common as a circular driveway, you're now putting it into an exception rule-based, and whether your relationship's good with Randall or bad with Randall will determine whether you're getting a engineering fee or not getting an engineering fee. And I think that's really what we've got to get away from is exceptions. And the reality is circular driveways are very, very common. Two curb cuts on a lot is not uncommon anywhere.
I just removed the presumption that it would be, the merit would be based on that. I think that the onus is on us to determine whether it's common enough occurrence and it makes sense to not restrict it like that. So that's what I'd just like to say.
I understand, and I would hope that we would put something as important as this that affects every resident in the town, current and new, out to a town vote. This town has been around for over 200 years and we haven't had a driveway reg, so if we're going to go down that road, I think the town should definitely weigh in on something that means as much.
Was there anybody on the committee that can speak to why it was changed? If you said that there was...
Did we vote? Do you remember, Mr. Labrie?
I remember the discussion.
I don't remember the final, and that's when I was questioned, I wasn't positive. I'd have to look up our notes.
I thought it was 2, but...
I did as
Yeah,
well.
and when I was on there, it was clearly, we debated that quite a bit, and that's my concern. If I got 2 members here that don't know how that was added in there.
Yeah, I guess my point of view is if committee members don't know how it got in there, I'd send it back to the committee and have them rediscuss it. Well,
The committee has been dissolved.
Yeah.
But, there was a lot of discussion on this, and the notes were taken
Right.
by the secretary.
So let
Yes.
me ask this, just from somebody that wasn't on the committee and wasn't part of the discussion. If I wrote this and said the number of curb cuts shall be limited to 2 per lot, that's the end of it, right?
Well, that's the end of that, absolutely, of that, and the only thing that I saw that could be a kind of a sticking point, then I'd ask that we send this back to the town for a vote and let the residents.
But let's,
Yes,
yeah,
yes,
let's
yes.
do this first before we
Yes.
get into that.
Yeah, that's the only
Okay.
thing that I saw different from where we were on the last one.
Well, you guys were on the committee, how does 2 stand instead
Well, there's a
of?
lot of discussion on that. That's why the final.
how many
it's go-
people
it's-
were on the committee?
It's been going on for months. Yeah, we've had the committee and
Must have been 6 people on that committee.
See, I guess,
seven.
6.
yeah, I guess from my point of view is, we asked them to do the job, and this is what they came up with. I would want to accept their recommendation unless there's a good reason not to.
But we can't seem to come up with a reason why
But this
2
is,
is not acceptable.
but what do the other 4 or 5 people remember? You know what I mean?
Right.
Is there anybody else here, builders, that want to talk about it? I don't know. You're gonna get a builder here, maybe, get some
I
notes.
don't know, I'm just trying to figure out the
Yeah.
best way of making it palatable to everybody.
Ed Gorner, Golden Circle. 2 curb cuts is not overdoing it. A lot of people have them, and a lot of people want them. And it's adding to the cost of a house. One other thing I'd like to bring up, and you can stop me if I'm wrong. What happens when somebody comes in with an existing lot that is not abutting town property?
I truly don't follow you.
Okay,
If it's a landlocked piece of parcel,
no, it's on road frontage. About 2 years ago, I had a road accepted, Mr. Kellogg had a road, road accepted. We transferred through the Registry of Deeds the property that this road was built on. Before that, it was never done. I've done 10 subdivisions in Southampton, and I still own the roads. That's not right. So if somebody comes in, there are vacant lots on these subdivisions that I did, the town really has no jurisdiction over it, because it doesn't abut.
but that's not what we're discussing. We're discussing the driveway regulations.
I understand that, but I'm saying if somebody comes in from one of these original subdivisions that I did, the town should have no jurisdiction on it, because the town doesn't own up to the lot like they do at Mr. LeBree's subdivision that he had
It's all
approved.
private property.
It's all private property.
So, yeah.
It's technically, I think, homeowners association owns them, I think. Doesn't it revert to the homeowners association?
No, it reverts to the town.
No, but if the town never formally received a deed, is it under homeowners association?
I signed a deed over to the town.
Well, on your, that one is fine, but your older ones,
Those were just left in limbo.
yeah. We, the planning board, rewrote the subdivision regulations.
Yes, you did.
We saw that problem when we were doing it, and we addressed it. So everything from now on forward will be done correctly. We have not addressed going back in time to, and there's that road, is it Nicole Circle?
Yes.
There was an issue with one of the residents wanting to build within an easement that was shown, and the town really didn't have any leg to stand on because that was never formally
Transferred and all that.
transferred over. So, but all the subdivisions from the last couple of years, when it was enacted, forward are all done right. So that's a good question. I don't know how that will be
But
addressed.
that's not going to get addressed in this.
So getting back to the curb cuts, is there someone that knows more about this than I do that can explain what the concern is with having 2 curb cuts other than a circular driveway?
And I don't know if that's a concern even. I have a circular driveway. I got 2
More,
cars.
it's safer actually, because you can
Yeah.
pull out either way.
Well,
Right.
there was concern in the committee that if they didn't want any backing onto the roads. So when you back out of your driveway, they always want to pull forward. So if anything, if you had 2 curb cuts, it would add to the safety of it, I think. But
I don't see an issue of adding
Yeah.
the word "to" in this.
So-
Yeah, well, I know that there was some concern in the history of of being on my neighborhood, where there was a question about putting an extra driveway and having, trucks or, that it wasn't going to be really a primary driveway. It was going to be access to have something else on the property that neighbors wouldn't have wanted, that sort of thing. Is that a big concern? I don't know.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Ultimately, however it's written, Randall's got every situation, every lot's gonna be different. So he's gonna have the final decision when they go into the driveway permit.
Okay.
So changing it to 2 is not going to do anything.
It's still going to say limited to 2, and he'll have the,
That's why, right,
I wish he was here to,
I don't see an issue with the 2 myself.
no.
Do I hear a motion to accept these regulations with the modification from 1 to 2?
I'd really like to hear Randall's take on this. Is it a big deal if we put it off till the next meeting and have Randall come?
To me personally?
Yeah. To any,
No, to me personally, that makes no difference one way or the other.
yeah, or to anybody. I mean, it's been going on for quite a while.
Then do you wish to make a motion
Yeah.
to table this until October 10th?
Let's hear from Randall.
Yeah, I'll make a motion, we table it till October 10th meeting, and we ask Randall Kemp to come to the meeting, and any other person that was on the committee come to the meeting so we could help sort this out. I don't see an issue, but I just don't know why they recommended one thing and now we're gonna change it.
Yeah.
I don't have enough information.
Makes
All right.
sense to me.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Right.
So moved.
Second.
Jim seconded, did you?
And then Charlie, the second part of my concern was how it's going to be enacted. Are we going to look to put this as an article to the town as the petition stated and asked and how we got here?
I would like to see what happens on the 10th, to see
Okay.
what comes out of this 1 versus 2. We might learn a little bit more
Okay,
of other things that we're not aware of. So tabling it for a couple
okay,
of,
that's fair enough.
I'm just looking at it that way.
All right, thank you.
All right, moving on to discharge of lien, 21 Camp John Road. It is my understanding, and correct me if I am wrong, that the entire lien was paid, including all interest, and the only thing we need to do is sign this instrument so that they can record it at the registry of deeds so that the title is clean.
We getting that confirmation from her?
The treasurer.
Okay, if she confirmed that was at roughly $4,300?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. That took care of that pretty quick.
Yep. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion if the lien is paid off, that we sign it.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So moved. And I'm not even going to try signing this at this point. I'll take care of that after. All right. Quick shift of gears, and then we're going to have a joint meeting with the North School Committee. Safe routes to school. I figured it was a timely time to bring that up. We received a very interesting email from CNA, which is the construction company that is working on that project. Now, as some of you may be aware, that project got stalled because of the telecommunications companies not moving their wires so that the utility companies could not move their poles, so the construction company could not start paving the sidewalks. Well, the utility companies and the communication companies got things moving faster than anybody was expecting. So CNA contacted Palmer Paving Corporation about trying to get this done. The problem is with these asphalt companies, they are booked out a long way down the road. So that meant that they needed to adjust schedules. So CNA would like to express our sincere gratitude to the Palmer Paving Corporation for paving the multi-use path in Southampton on Saturday, September 23rd. As the utility companies were pressed to compress their schedule, Palmer continued to modify and shift their own company schedule in an effort to accommodate CNA. Palmer offered to perform their paving on a Saturday with no additional compensation, which expedited their work by 3 weeks. While Palmer did all this quietly, CNA wants to appropriately credit their work in doing this. Sign Andy, who's, I guess, one of the managers there. And as you can see now, there are people using that sidewalk. There are children out there on bicycles like it's a bike path.
It's another lane to the highway?
It's another lane. My fear is somebody's going to think it is a lane. But that was all well done. I mean, now they're working on the crossings and stuff like that, but at least there's now a safe routes for the children to go through without having to be on Route 10 trying to dodge traffic. With that said, our next scheduled meeting is with the Norris School Committee. Who would like to begin?
I will. Aaron Kuchar, 49 Coleman Road, and Chair of the School Committee. There was a letter that was drafted and sent to both the Finance and the Select Board on the 18th by Craig and Eliza, our principal, and then by the business manager, to kind of outline what's going on with the school and what we're seeing for next year, which is what prompted me to call this meeting so that we could be proactive for next year in what funding is looking like as best as we can see it. So, you know, it pretty much outlines in that letter kind of where we are, and that basically we're looking at about a $260,000 deficit next year if funding were to remain completely the same as we had gotten this year, because we have been bridging the gap with school choice funds that we had accumulated, and we can't do that anymore because there's no more left in there to utilize at the end of this school year. So thinking for next year, when we're starting to do the budgeting and figuring out what to do about this, that was kind of what prompted me to call this. We basically put it down to about 5 teacher positions would have to be eliminated, meaning there would be 3 teachers per grade, which in some grades would be near impossible to keep up with, because there would be in excesses of maybe 30 kids in a classroom. So it's pretty dire. I don't want to be like a, but I do think we need to address on solutions. I don't know. How do we figure this out? What can we do? I just know that if we have the funding that we have this year, continue to next year, we won't be able to not have cuts.
Now, this year, you had an increase in your budget. Do you remember what it was?
Was it around 100,000?
But remember, when you say an increase, that's contractual increases, kind of like everybody in the town has too. I mean, we didn't get $100,000 that was for supplies or something like that. It all went to contractual increases with all the staff and at the school.
But this $260,000 includes your contractual expansions for the following year.
I believe so. Right.
So
not necessarily. I'm not 100%. Well, no, because if we took the same as we got this year, those wouldn't have the contractuals for next year, because you're not adding in their 3% or 2% or 1% or whatever it is that they have. So no, that 266 is without the contractual increases.
So they need more to cover their contractual obligations.
That's what I'm getting at here.
Yeah, probably. I don't think we haven't.
Especially teachers that are less than 10 years.
You're going to have to go to that. You have to stand at that podium, or I am going to get lectured to by 12,000 people. You have to come up to the podium.
Do you want
Please.
to?
Sorry,
No, you can come up to the
You
podium.
can come up with me.
just for that one.
Yeah, you can stand next to me
You can
because you
stand
can
next
help
to her.
answer.
That's not a problem. It's just,
This is Eliza.
Feels like a school committee meeting where everybody just says whatever they want.
I know. Right,
we can't do that.
I know.
Right, right,
We
right.
would like to.
right.
My only clarification was that those people who are on steps automatically move up to the next step without another contractual increase. So if they're on 0% across the board for everyone, the people that are on steps still move up a step. So that is where
Right.
we would still need funding for that.
Right.
So, and the reason I'm asking that question is because it sounds to me like you're not asking for all the money you actually need.
We don't even, yeah, I mean, this is so preliminary, this was, that we haven't even,
appreciate
but
that.
yes, but I agree, that's not even the number we would need, because there would
What you
be.
need to do, in my mind, is get a solid number based on your contractual agreements that are going to expand for this coming year, as well as what you see the shortfalls are going to be.
And we definitely could, I mean, for contractual, we definitely would know that, I mean, that's
Right.
easy enough to forecast.
And
We
if you
definitely
take,
could
and
do
if you
that.
take your contractual
But
agreements.
if you think about it, it's probably about another 100, I mean, think that extra 100 really went for contract, you're probably talking an extra 100,000.
But that has an implication on our entire budget, so we need to know this sooner rather than later.
Understood, yeah,
So-
I
so-
understand.
So if you're asking for 260,000, and we take the assumption, without asking you the question, that that's the entire amount of money, immediately you're going to be in a shortfall before you get through the door next fall.
Right. I mean, I think, I mean, we all know what where the budget for the town has been, and that it's been very difficult for everybody in every department. So, I mean, I think we need some sort of brainstorming, because you don't have $400,000 just sitting around. So I think that's where, I mean,
I can tell you that I use myself as just a thumb, that we have an expansion of growth of about 400,000 in this town every year. That $400,000 though, you probably have 150,000 just going for benefit packages and stuff like that. And if you start trying to take and you'll realize that there's no way that you can support the town with the new growth. This town definitely needs some type of Prop 2.5
right.
mechanism.
Right.
Because we all see that we're on the same train wreck.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of what we as a school are trying to be proactive with, because the last thing we want to see is that to come to the very end. And we also know that the sooner you talk about things, and the sooner the people who are watching this meeting, and the sooner it gets out there that this is really, really happening. And it's not like, oh, we don't give the money to the school and they somehow find it, which has been the past talk. I think that's what I think. Getting in front of you guys, getting in front of this people that are listening, getting in front of as many people as we can to say, this is dire, like this is really something serious that's going to be happening. We all have to somehow come together and figure out some solution so that it doesn't happen.
And I appreciate you coming here and early on and talking about this, and I think it's important for people to realize a couple things. One is, when you don't fund the schools and you end up having a cut in teachers, you therefore affect the ability to have school choice students in those particular grades, which then affects this chart that you
Even
nicely
more.
gave us to let us know the decreasing amount of school choice available funds. And you can't fund a school on these school choice funds. It's supposed to be supplemental to the budget.
Correct.
And the other point I want to make, in case people don't know this, is that wonderful playground was not funded out of the Norris School budget. It was funded by community preservation funds.
Right, yeah, thank you.
And just to add on to that about the 2014 budget cuts, and we lost the 2 teachers who were not restored, which is in the letter, which I know I keep saying over and over, I just want to remind you. It also limits the amount of school of choice students that we can take in, as you just stated. So if there's a family of 2 and we have open spots in kindergarten, they're not going to move their kids from another town to come here if both students can't come. So then we don't get them. We still have openings in kindergarten this year. We didn't take as many in as we could have, because they may have had an older sibling who couldn't come in, because we only had open slots in 3 grade levels, and they were limited spots. So
What's the average class size now, just so people know?
I would say 20.
20, so that's
20,
a
21.
good size class.
Yeah.
And this will only make it worse.
Oh, it would be, yeah.
Right.
I'm not even sure if contractually we could have classes that big. I don't know how all that works, because
I think it can't go over 25.
Right, And so I don't know, I mean, there's a whole other realm of problems that it would create that I'm not aware of.
And hopefully we can get this done during the process, because I hate to go to town meeting and have somebody get up there and make a motion to decrease this, to give the school. I
Right.
mean, that's just going to be bad for everybody, so we need to work through the process now.
Agreed, yeah, and I think as a school, I mean, we want to see everybody, we're a town, we want to work with everybody, we want to see every department flourish. We don't want to be up against anybody and saying, give us this, don't give us that, that's not what we're here for.
You know,
We're
and we've talked about it before, where if we send a student out of district, it costs us $80,000 plus transportation. And that's a lot of money. So we try to develop programs that are meeting the needs of our students. And at this time, we are kind of we're at a wall where I don't have any extra staff to differentiate the strategies that we're giving students to give them exactly what they need. So yes, we have, 5 special ed teachers who have been certified for this special Orton Gillingham program to teach students. It's like a language-based learning program, but our groups are too big. So they recommend students in a group of 3 students, and we have 5 or 6 students in a group. So the kids are not making as much progress as they should be making because of that. I don't like saying that out loud because it doesn't look good for Norris School, but it's the reality. It's the reality. And then parents push for their kids to get what they need, and they end up, getting a mediation and going to the state level, and then we lose, and then they get placed out of district, and then it costs us the money.
So I don't know if you have any questions, and I think the letter pretty much was I think it was great with the numbers to kind of give you the facts and what we're looking at. And I want to keep the dialogue with you guys open throughout this year on ideas, and I don't know, like somehow trying to come together and figure out what we can do so that we don't look at this.
I would think you'd want to attend the finance committee meetings too, whenever you can, on the budget process.
Oh, absolutely.
I was just
yeah,
looking at the letter too. It looks like it went to Norris School Committee, Hampshire, and Southampton Teachers Association. It'd be great if it went to the
Yes.
Finance Committee.
It went to the finance committee. Yep, it went to the.
You got it? Okay.
Yep, it went to the finance committee. So.
It didn't say
Yeah.
CC on.
Oh, at the head.
Yeah, the head is
It was
top of
directed
it.
to
It was
the
sent to
board
the
and
Okay, good.
and the finance committee. Yeah. So, so I think that hopefully we can work through that.
I will tell you, personally, I see us going back for a 2.5.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if there's any other solution. I don't know. I mean, I think.
I don't know either, but
I think it's. I don't. Yeah. I mean, I don't know how. Yeah, I will bring that up. I don't know how we have to somehow get more revenue generation. There's no question that needs to happen, and it probably is. I just don't know the right, I mean, every year we get more people out for it, but I don't know the right way to articulate kind of what's going on. And, I mean, we've tried.
if it's any comfort, every time we've motivated to move something forward and it fails, we're always told that we didn't put the campaign together correctly.
Oh, I had the call on
So,
that.
you
If there's somebody who knows how to run a campaign really well, like, I don't know.
We don't, it
Yeah.
just doesn't happen.
People who say people don't run it
I
right,
know.
but there's no volunteers on the other side.
I know, absolutely, absolutely.
But I would think if you can go with ECAT and put something together that we can put on our public, channels and hit people with it,
Yeah, I mean, we've definitely talked about utilizing them.
Your school committee meetings are going to be recorded pretty soon. I believe that's pretty much wired in now.
Oh,
So-
yeah, it would be great since nobody really comes to them anyway. Because they're so riveting. I would love for people to listen to us and hear us talk and know what's going on and be informed.
That's the whole idea of having recorded, so at
Yeah.
least people that.
Yeah, who can't get
have-
there or have other things. I think that's fabulous. I welcome it.
Charlie, now, this will be one of the negatives that we're doing now is we're changing the voting from elections to when the town meeting is.
Right.
So if we have the town meeting first and the elections after.
This will work better.
If we do a 2.5 override, we wouldn't know that passes until after the town meeting. That's where the negative is.
If you,
Well, the election first and.
Right, the election
We've
right
been-
now is first.
and I don't want to get into this in detail, but if you look at the statute, it appears the select board doesn't need town meeting to motivate a special town election for an override.
Still, but the election is proposed to be after the town meeting. Right, we're contemplating switching it.
Yeah.
So,
Robert, would you please explain what that sign language was?
Yeah, what was that?
I just made it up. Seemed to work. You can go either order on the 2.5. You can have a town meeting first, then a town election, or a town election,
Yeah.
then a town meeting.
So,
right, but we're contemplating switching it. Right now, the town elections are first. If there was an override, we would have had the answer for the town meeting if,
right.
you know what I
I
mean?
thought there was
Okay.
a meeting first. Didn't we have
Jen-
a meeting and then we had the election?
Yes.
Yes.
That's the way it was, right? It got passed in the meeting, but then failed in the
There's
election.
a bylaw coming up that may invert that.
Oh,
The election will be
That's what-
first.
oh, I see.
No, the election will be
election
second.
second, meeting first.
Right.
Correct.
Isn't that the
So
way it
then
was?
we wouldn't know if it passes, so we wouldn't be
That's
able
what we
to
did.
adjust,
No.
we wouldn't be able to handle you see what I'm saying?
So now
Yeah.
it's election.
See
Well,
what
we
you're
wouldn't
saying?
know if we have money or not, so we'd have to come up with an alternate plan, but we wouldn't know that until after the town meeting.
Financial side.
It should be
So we call a special town meeting.
meeting then election.
That's extra money.
That's cheaper than a special election.
But anything special is costing the money that we could give to other things. That's what I
You
get
do
at.
realize we don't win either way we do this.
This is correct.
Right.
Okay, I just
Because
want
we
to
need
make
a
sure.
better campaign.
Yes, that's what it is. Yes. It's,
Did you have something to say? Were you waiting to talk?
Yeah, I'm just, keep going.
No, he's-
No, no, no.
He's just a regular,
You go.
don't worry.
we know, Michael.
I stand in the
You go,
back.
because I have to bring one more thing up after.
If I'm not called on, I know I'm not supposed to speak on the subject. Michael Rosenberg, 144 East Street, Finance Committee. So we have been aware of this problem, the Select Board and the Finance Committee. It has been something we've been aware of for 2 fiscal years. We knew this was coming. To be honest, a lot of this started prior to my time, anyone on the Finance Committee's time. It was an FY 14 change when we started reducing what we put for net school spending. Every year, we slowly reduced what we put into that. So we were putting less and less, so we were reaching the net school spending goal. The first year I started, one of the goals for budgeting was to only meet net school spending, not to go over.
Right.
So when we set that bar at that level, you basically hindered yourself, so that was 15, call it. We hindered ourselves for the next 2 years because we only put so much money into the school, and we've been slowly decreasing that. So it's been something we've been coming to. We really need to come to grips with it. One thing I'd like to stress, and we talk about it all the time, and we hear 2.5 override, and I know they're inevitable, but we never actually talk about reducing expenses. We never actually talk about consolidating departments, doing things to help reduce some of the costs in town that we can. Cost-saving measures in the building, in other buildings, that'll help. It's not going to fix, but those little things may help another department along the way, which will eventually maybe help the school or another department. We can't just look to always ask for more money. We have to look internally to see where we can consolidate, reduce. I'm not saying lay people off, but multi-function pools, administrative pools, resources helping other departments. If you were to give someone 5 extra hours a week, that's short money if they're able to help out a department that's down a staff member. If it means you don't have to hire a full-time or close to full-time staff member, that's a big help. What else is there right here? Controlling, I wrote this while standing. Controlling negotiated costs, CBA agreement costs. I brought it up last year, I'll bring it up again. Participating in those negotiations is your right as the executive branch of the town, whether it's the town administrator, the chair, the vice chair. It is your right to sit in on those meetings, to know what's being proposed, and to advocate for the town, whether it be Hampshire or Norris. We need to do that. We need to work on controlling those costs. Not speaking specifically on every union, any union in particular, but they can't just go into the meeting knowing that they're going to get, call it a 5% raise and these increases. We have to also fight to maintain the entire town. And that's on all levels really with those. But, with these, helping to control some of these the contractual costs there. And The last thing I had here is the Hampshire Regional Agreement, digging into that, looking into it. You know, there are reports that have suggested that basically told us we need to look into that because the way that's set up is it's not appropriate for the town, and there should be other ways around it, and we need to put the effort in. You know, we chase a lot of things in town that are constituent concerns, small things, right? We talk about getting rid of the wood that's piled up next door, or someone's having a crosswalk issue, or town road plowing. I mean, we also need to put some of the effort into some of these other big ones and really dig in and see if there's a way to, you know, recoup some of those and to reduce some of the expenses.
I think you're going a little far afield of the topic, Mike.
Why? If it reduces Hampshire regional costs, then that cost can be put towards the highway, the fire, the police, the school, the health department, building department, assessors, right? If you're able to contractually renegotiate that so it's a more equitable agreement, then that's more tax base that we can utilize in the town. Now, maybe it's $500, but maybe it's $500,000. I don't know, but we need to explore that, because the longer we don't, the longer it exists, the more defeated people feel, and it just continues, right? We need to put effort into some of those things.
Let's bring that up, because I've been looking at that the last several months, and I've got some copies of it. And I, for one, if we can put a public face on it, I'd like to make a motion that we study that agreement and see if it's still a viable agreement, and if not, then can we renegotiate, or what can we do from here? And I'd be happy to take the official lead on that. So that's my motion, that we do that. It's a topic that when we talked about in the past, people are look at you like you can't touch it, you know, but we're 56% of the student population there, and we pay a lot more, and we get one vote. You know, it's whoever did the agreement, I'm sure had good thoughts in their mind way back when, but it's a new time, a new era, so I think it's one of those things that people didn't want to talk about, but let's do it.
Okay. If I could, I'd second your motion.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
More discussion? I would suggest that this gets shared with the Finance Committee, the actual documents. I guess it'll be the town administrator will have to dig those up. All in favor?
Aye.
So just so I'm clear, this is a motion to study the Hampshire Regional Agreement? Is that what?
School
To
agreement.
review the Hampshire Regional, original agreement that formed.
High school agreement.
Yeah,
It
so,
should have been a contract between 5 towns. It should have been established back in the early 70s.
Okay. So if I just put original agreement?
yeah.
Then you're okay with that?
So,
John's gonna head down.
Okay.
yeah, so we had that motion. What I'd like to do, and I'm not sure who, what, where, put a committee together to work together reviewing that,
Well,
because,
let's get it.
yeah, so I'll bring it up at a meeting a couple down the road, and then we can go there, but that's my thoughts down the
Yeah.
road.
So Dan Pellegrini, 76 Crooked Ledge Road, member of the Finance Committee also, looking to tag in a little bit on what Mike was talking about in cost reduction. We ran some numbers looking at what our budget was in 2012 to what it is in 2018. So give you a couple examples. You've got your police department that's gone up by 20%, which is somewhat reasonable over a 6-year period. You got your highway department that's gone up by 58.7% in the same period. Our fire department has gone up by 97.9% in that same period, and our school districts have gone down by 7%. Other ones that jump out a little bit, Board of Health is up 50%, library's up 51%. But to Mike's point, I mean, we're spending in that, and I doubt that parallels the growth in the town. So, you know, that's all I would ask is, you know, if we're going to put a Prop 2.5 override out there, we sell it a little bit better, John, by saying, here's where we've saved, here's what we've done, here's where we've tightened that belt. And that's all. I just wanted to put these facts out there. Numbers don't lie, and we really have neglected our schools.
I think it's a time where, and I'm not for or against it, but it's a time where we start looking at stuff where people say you don't touch. Central dispatch, I'm not in favor of it, but should we study it? You know, central whatever, you know.
Yeah, no, we really got to look internal. As we're either looking to reprioritize our spend, we've got to look to tighten it up and then ask when we've done our due diligence and really.
Yeah, I'd much rather study something, come back and say, we're doing it great next, or we can save here.
Thank you.
I just have one more thing to bring up, because I was asked to bring it up last night. So, and as far as negotiations, I would love for anybody from the select board to come. And I will tell you that I can speak only for Norris, but we were very thoughtful of the town's spending when we did negotiations, and their numbers like 5 don't even enter our world. So I just want to put that out there. We definitely are not thinking that we're going to give our teachers something that's not appropriate for the rest of the town. But the thing I was asked to bring up last night was something that we just need to get a little clarification on that you may or may not be aware of. And although I think the email might have been forwarded to the select board, but a little earlier in the year, do you know the exact timing? You have to come up and talk. Oh, come up next to me. Back in June, there was an email that was sent to Eliza regarding snow plowing for this year. And the snow plowing from the highway department, and changes needing to possibly occur because there was a decrease in funding for them.
For FY18.
It was my understanding there was no decrease in funding to their snow removal budget. And this was really concerning to us because it was never in our budget to have to be spending any money on snow removal. So we tried to get some clarification and through Randall, but haven't gotten any clarification, and are worried that something is going to happen where all of a sudden we are responsible for something that we were never been responsible for before.
Sounds like a shifting of cost, you're saying.
It sounds like it, but it sounds like that was what was being told to us. But I would say that if that was going to occur, that I probably would come to you guys to ask what every other department is required to do out of their budgets.
He's talking about other areas other than the lots. So he said he would still be responsible for the lots, but he wants to talk about, I think it's RJM that does the sidewalks with the Bobcat. And I think that this all came about because I sent an email letting him know that this bench that the sixth grade parent committee had donated to the school from the sixth grade class that left the year before was damaged. So there was so much snow last year that after the first snow plow, it must have gotten knocked over, but because the snowbank was so high, we didn't notice it until all the snow melted. And I said to him, I'm not asking you to replace it or repair it because I should have let you know right away, but I didn't. So I'm just letting you know that it was damaged because now there was a garden box that was damaged by this, a mower. So when he responded to that and said, I can't remember what he said in the beginning, but he said then, oh, by the way, there was a cut to my budget. We need to talk about it in the fall because I'm not going to be able to do the sidewalks anymore, just the lots. Now, my custodians do up to the doors. So the Bobcat does the bigger part of the sidewalks around the flagpole and things like that, but they go out and shovel, snow blow around the back and up close to the doors so the doors can be opened and things like that. But that would be an increase to my budget that I didn't know about. I mean, no one ever said to.
He has a contract with the company, with the Bobcat, to take and do the sidewalks?
I believe RJM,
yeah, I believe he decided to outsource it, I believe. That was a decision he made when he took it over. I don't think, from what I know in the past, that when Ed was there, we did it with the highway department did it, but I think maybe Randall decided for whatever reason that he was subcontracting that. So I think he was alluding to us having to take over that, which once again was not known to us, and we would want some clarification as to why we would be required to take that over. So I'm bringing this. I'm happy to give him time to talk about it. We did respond a couple times and ask him for clarification, and it hasn't happened. But I would like to make sure that this gets addressed.
Does the board mind if they bounce the emails to me and I'll talk to the highway superintendent?
Yeah, that's fine. And also, he's coming in the next meeting, I believe, to address something else.
Yeah, it'll give us some time to talk to him and then come back when, okay?
So forward the email. We'll forward the email to you.
Just forward it to me and then I'll talk to him
Okay.
and we'll see
All right.
what's.
If there's any clarification that needs to be made or whatever.
I mean, it could very well be just miscommunication and.
Could be. I don't know. Yep, definitely, could be.
Thank you.
All right.
And Charlie, just one last thing that came up at the school committee meeting last night. I just wanted to put this in a file away. Is the access for the driveway. We asked them for their opinion and what they would like, and they were assuming we were asking them to pay for it, and they said, we don't want to spend the money on that, we don't want to go there. I says, regardless of that, let's just get their opinion on it, so at least we have that.
Yeah.
And if money shows up from a grant or who knows what, we'll be ready to roll with their input on it.
We didn't realize that. We thought you were asking us to go forward with this, and we were saying there's no way we could fiscally do that. So we didn't come back with an answer. So
I would like a bunch of other things
Miscommunication.
before a driveway.
yeah, before a driveway.
Yeah.
So, but we are going to talk about it next meeting, and then we'll give you the recommendation. If money fell out of the sky and it was just for this area, then we would do this.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what.
Okay.
Realize that's what we were basically saying, we don't want the town spending money on that when there's so many other problems that need to be spent on. That's kind of what we were thought. So anyway, we will come back to give you an answer on that.
Okay.
All right.
Bylaw committee,
Can't get rid of us, right?
seem to be just there.
Belda Goldberg, Caitlin Way. So I just wanted to begin by telling you where we are, what we've been up to since we talked to you the last time. We sent a memo out to all departments, just reminding them what we're doing and that we're looking at the bylaws, and invited them to come to our meeting tonight from 4 to 5:30, just to talk and see if they had any questions or any suggestions for us. And I'm sad to say that no one came. So I guess we'll take that as a good thing, that they don't have any questions right now. But we do hope that people will be looking at the webpage and will send us our suggestions. And I do want to thank you folks for sending us some suggestions. And I do want to thank PPPB. They have been particularly helpful with this and have sent us lots of suggestions that we've incorporated. So we really appreciate it, them looking at absolutely everything that we put up there. So we appreciate their help. The committees, we also sent an email to all of the committees, groups, and councils, whatnots, and sent them our new article on membership that we also shared with you, and our new article on conducting business that we also shared with you. And other than PPPB, we haven't gotten any suggestions back from committees yet. We told them we gave them about a month to get back to us, so we're going to send you what we have on those two next week, early next week, right after the 1st. So you'll be able to look at that, and I think you've given us some comments on that already. So what we hope to accomplish tonight was we sent you the article on the draft on the select board and the draft on town clerk and treasurer collector. So we hope that you would give us your tentative approval to that what we have is good for now, and so we'll put it up. And all of the articles, by the way, are up now on our webpage as separate files, so people can look at each article independently and submit comments to us independently. So if you're okay with these three, we would like to, or if you want to change things or whatever, that's great too. We'll let people know that and still collect comments. And by the way, once you say you're okay with these, that doesn't mean we stop taking comments. You know, we're still evaluating. At each of our meetings, we begin by evaluating any comments that we've gotten, and then we go back and incorporate them if we've decided to. And all comments that people give us, we're putting up on the webpage, and in the end, we'll give you, you can look at them anytime, but in the end, we'll give you a list of all of the comments we've gotten and what action we've taken on each of them. So if you want to follow our progress at any time, you can just look at the webpage. So the select board article, just to quickly recap that, it's basically changes for language or clarity. The only real additions, the current version only mentions that the select board appoint the police chief. It doesn't say that you appoint anyone else. So we've added a section that says you appoint the fire chief, another that you appoint the highway superintendent, another for town accountant, and another for boards, committees, and so on.
I'm impressed. I've been watching this. I think you guys are doing a great job with all the, yeah. You've seen my comments. You may not agree with my comments, but you see my comments.
There was only one, we didn't.
I really like the changing the quorum from 25 to 50. I think 50 isn't enough, but the fact that 25 could rule what goes on in town just was scary.
Oh, back in the dark ages?
I
You
don't,
used to have to go down the street to find people just to get 25.
yeah.
Well, how
Well,
about the special town meeting we had over the water thing? I mean, it was
Yeah.
close. If
It
it was
was.
50.
But you know, yeah, it's the same 25 can just steer the town in the wrong direction. This hopefully will bring people out.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think this is.
So you're all right with the select board
Do I hear a
one for
motion
now?
to move forward?
We're going to vote on each one individually?
I would just do the whole packet.
Okay, you want to speak to the other ones?
And so the select board, and then we gave you one on town clerk and one on treasurer collector, and both individuals in those positions have looked at this. And those are basically changes for language and clarity there as well. You're okay with those?
I am.
Okay. And then the next thing, and we really want to lobby for this, that we had talked to you about this earlier and had submitted the same thing to Finance Committee, that we would like you to let us know if you are in favor of adding a separate article on the budget process. We urge you to do that because we feel that there are so many different individuals and groups involved in this process, and it would be clearest if it was in one section in the bylaws and it said exactly who does what when.
Yes.
And it would eliminate some of the conflict and some of the issues that we saw last year. It would be nice to have in the bylaws that say also that a budget that will go to town meeting would be posted up on the web 2 weeks before town meeting. We have to do that with the town report, so it seems only fair that people can look at the budget before. And to do that, you know, if you go back, we gave you a timeline just as our brainstorming session, just for you to think about to get started. We don't really have a stake in exactly, you know, who does what when. Our stake is that the bylaw is written, you know, nice and clear and concise, and so that everybody knows what their role is. And if the Select Board and Finance Committee could get together and give us some, you know, guidelines about what you want, we're happy to start working on the language. But we need some guidance from you folks as to what you...
The only question I have about that is if someone could just remind me, when we were applying for this year's Community Compact grants, Bob Markle was going to submit a grant, and was it about regionalization or was it about the budget process?
I thought it was regionalization.
Okay, because remember he came and brought that
Yeah.
very thick thing. I just wouldn't want you to go ahead and move forward, and then if that was the project, that might change. It would be a lot of work. It might
No, I
not.
don't see these two.
Yeah,
connecting
so it was
at all.
regionalization?
I believe so.
Okay.
And I personally would love to see a clean outline of how our budget process works, so anyone that gets elected or appointed to these boards can pick it up, look at it, and understand it.
Me too.
So, is the board in favor of this? So the board's in favor of everything that's been proposed?
You're going down the right path.
Okay, so you will, what is the process going forward then? How will we, we need to know what you folks want, or you want us to take that timeline and talk to Finance Committee, or?
Yes, you
or
need to
you
discuss
wa-
this with Finance Committee.
And with-
You're probably going to need to take a run it by town council afterwards.
Right.
To make sure that we don't miss some law that we're not aware of. And then once that's done, it'll go back to you to take and submit this to us so that we can basically move it forward at town meeting.
All right, but for the budget process article, though, do you want to give us any guidance first? Do you want us to make a stab at it, or what, you know? We haven't gotten any feedback yet from either you folks or Finance Committee about that timeline.
I would think the Finance Committee and the Finance team would be the ones to sit down with and discuss that. And with Bob there, too.
Right.
Yeah, I think that'd be the
You want us
starting point.
to do that,
I
okay.
mean, you want my personal opinion, I don't think that having a town budget ready 2 weeks in advance isn't as necessary as 1 week with the electronic versions and everything else, so a week gives everyone time.
As long as it's, we don't, the timing isn't,
Yeah.
that it's ready is
But
the
it needs
important
to be
thing,
ready
that it's
so
up
that it
there.
doesn't show up as an article change at
At the
town
last minute.
meeting, which causes all of us to pull calculators out, scratch our heads and try to figure out, what does this all mean? And then I watched the town administrator take 2 circles around the podium, you know, and the town moderator trying to keep control. So, yeah, we need to know, you know, a week would be reasonable.
Okay. All right. Okay, great, thank you. And the next thing that you mentioned it, John, a minute ago, that this was originally came from Janine to, since you have a warrant article to reverse the meeting, town meeting and elections, she thought it was an appropriate time to think about the quorum. And so now our quorum is 25. We're suggesting to raise it to 50. Originally, we really wanted to raise it even more than that because it seems like it's so low, but 50 seemed like a good incremental change to, get people used to it. There is a spreadsheet that Janine has that is from May of 2017. It's 2 pages, 2-page list of towns across Massachusetts with their population and their quorums. So just for the people that are listening, Hadley, for instance, has a population of 5,000, quorum of 100. Hatfield, 3,400, quorum 75. Williamsburg, 2,600, quorum 60. And according to the town clerk, we have a population of 6,252. Our attendance at the annual town meeting is average 245, and at special town meetings average 90. So it seems like 50 is better than what we have, but not outrageous that we're going to have trouble meeting it.
50 people there.
Okay.
Very good.
That's it.
Thank
Okay.
you again.
Thank you.
I just want to say one thing.
Please.
Okay. Hi, Jackie Sears, 8 Kuchar Road. I would just like to say, when you put up the budget, it's really hard to see it at home on TV, because you can be talking about it, but then people, it's out of focus, it's really hard to understand. Because it's one thing if you have it right in front of you, but when people at home, they have a hard time.
Are you talking about in this room?
I'm talking about when you're at home and you're watching the TV, it's really hard to see the budget.
But are you talking about when we're doing that discussion in this room?
In here, you can see it beautifully because you have the screen.
I'm asking you this question for a reason, Jackie.
Okay.
Okay? Because if you're talking about this room, we're in the process of upgrading all this equipment.
Great.
One of the things we're going to do, and I think we've already accomplished it, is to have a direct feed from the projector to the camera system, rather than the camera trying to grab it off the screen and rebroadcast it.
Yeah.
So that is in the works. I don't know where it is. The last time somebody asked me about priorities for ECAT, I said, get the school wired. We got town meetings coming up. School committee needs to be recorded and broadcasted. That's the next thing in our contract, and then we'll circle back here.
Right.
Because right now, even this meeting that's being recorded, we don't have a cameraman right now. We right now have this set up as a broad angle screen. Okay? We're going to get back to this room again. Your point is well taken. I've heard this many a times. And the other thing is to try to replace that projector with more lux so that it's much brighter.
Right.
So, yes.
Oh, great, thank you.
Point's taken. It's just, you know how government moves?
Yeah, the municipal muck.
Yes.
Seen it. Thank you.
Okay. George, you wanted to say, Robert, you wanted to say something?
Robert Floyd, 15 East Street. Just one thought on this past conversation. We're doing something with the gallery where people can flip their laptops or their screens and look at the budget from your website.
Yeah.
versus, you know.
They don't have to watch it on the camera, they
Right.
can go right on the website.
Okay.
George, you want to say something? Oh, only because I'm becoming very generous tonight.
George Rancourt, White Loaf Road. I know this is like touching a third rail, talk about school, okay? And I'm sorry that the school committee left and Mr. Rosenberg, because I would like to have said something. One of the things, I've driven by the school. Now, the last time I checked, we teach kindergarten through 6th grade. Am I right?
That's my memory of it.
Yeah, at that school, right? Have you ever counted how many cars were in that place? I'm just counting cars. That means how many employees are in that school. I don't know. I don't know what it takes to run kindergarten through 6th grade. Now, the last time I went to school, kindergarten through 8th grade, there was a nun standing behind me, whacking me, right? But the fact is,
I could see that nun
Yeah.
coming up to you right now, George.
every time I write my name, I check behind me, see if there's a nun.
Yeah.
But, I mean, there's a lot of employees.
Well, I wouldn't associate the number of cars in the parking lot
Well,
with the number of
oh,
employees.
really?
There are a lot of parents
Oh, no,
that come in.
Well, no.
I mean, we have data on
That's
how many
at a
employees
minimum.
there are in the
But
town. I would go by that before I'd go by the number of cars.
Yeah.
All right. Your
Want me to
point,
go in there and count them?
George,
No, we have
your
data on how
point's
many
taken.
employees there are
Yeah.
in the town.
Okay, we hear you.
Yeah.
Okay, but I'm not gonna.
I don't know what a superintendent makes. I don't know. I have some idea. And I don't know what the assistant makes.
They're all public records.
Yeah.
You can pull all that.
Yeah, no, I know that. Okay, I've seen some of it, and that was a couple years old. But, there's awful lot of money at the Norris School, whether we like to admit to it or not. And then, like I say,
There's no debate about that. It's what, 60% of the town budget? Not the North, I'm talking about, and, yeah.
Yeah, it's still a lot of money.
It's a lot of money, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, let's move on here. CR transfer for Winding River Land Conservation to the Conservation Commission. Our concern was how the special account was being put together. We have a response on that. Basically, the town accountant tells us that since the money would not belong to the town of Southampton, a separate bank account would be created. This would be an agency funds account. And annually, the first week in November, a check for $3,600 would be received from Red Brook Estates Homeowners Associations into that account. That was the question the board had.
Yeah, and it's not town money.
It's not town money, nor does it become town money.
Right.
So we comfortable with that? Hearing the silence, I'm moving on to the next line item. Election revision appointment, treasurer, collector, and town clerk. I believe this was requested by an individual rather than a committee. The assumption was originally that it was a committee. But I'm not quite sure. What I would suggest we do at this point is we're so far away from town elections anyways, we'll just table this for now. We all comfortable with that?
We can't do anything with it.
No. I mean, the only thing we can do is put it on for the annual town election,
Right.
if we choose to do that.
Yeah, how many times have we tried that so far? I'm just curious.
3 or 4.
3 or 4, yeah.
3 or 4.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
The feet.
Has it been close, or is it?
I think one missed by 10, but if we had that attitude, we wouldn't have a Prop 2.5 override, would we? Another one,
Yeah, I
because we
know.
failed so
I'm
many. So timing is a lot in everything you do.
I understand it's how you educate the voters.
Yeah.
And how you
Yep.
present yourself.
Exactly.
At least that's what's been drummed into me tonight. Review,
Could I just ask
Sure.
to go back one? Are we supposed to vote on transferring the Winding River Land Conservation to the town? Because I think last time we discussed it, and there was questions around what kind of account has to be set up. Are we supposed to vote on that? Because we didn't.
I frankly do not recall.
I don't believe we voted on it because we were waiting to see what kind of account gets created.
So if we're establishing this account, do we vote to establish this account?
To accept the CR.
Yeah.
You accept it?
We'd
Yes.
have to, yeah.
All right. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept the CR on the Red Brook, well, it's from the Winding River Land Conservatory to the Conservation Commission. And we're talking about the Red Brook State
The states,
Star.
yeah.
Do I hear a second?
And just add in, this would be established in an agency fund account.
Yep.
And I'll second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Very good. Rainey, good catch. Review building inspector hours. Mr. Gwinner, would you do me a favor? Would you turn the heat down in this place?
How?
There's a little button there. You push the button.
Here, this is what.
It's your notes.
72, all right?
I don't know, what was it at?
75.
Oh, boy.
How about 70? If it starts to snow, let me know.
Right.
Okay, building inspector. Jim, you want to take the lead on this?
No, I think Tom can start.
Sure. I was appointed about 3 years ago, it'd be 3 years ago, October, at 31 hours salary, but at a 31-hour a week position. And I've found, since then I'm doing well over 100 more permits a year. There's a lot more zoning issues than that, and I just can't seem to, I'm putting in more hours than that, most weeks close to 40. But I try to give the service, and I'm on, call 24 hours a day. I actually get, zoning complaints at 6:30 a.m. weekends sometimes, and calls at 9:30. Sometimes a lot of them, nonsense, but I do answer them. And just, want to let you know that, it's a lot more than the 31 hours and 3 years ago that the job required.
Right, and I was talking to him about that, and I asked him if he could put together, maybe go back 3 years on how do you judge the job of the building inspector, maybe by revenue coming in to see, if the revenue's going up, the hours are going up. So I had him do that, and that's what it's on your first page right here. You can go 2015, it was what, $55,152 revenue
Yes.
collected by the town. 2016, it went to 91,292.7, and then 2017, you have 100,242.3. So that to me shows that he says he's working. He's not looking for a higher hourly rate. He's just looking to get paid for the hours he puts in. So he's looking for an additional 7 hours a week, which he's been spending more than that. So right now he's at 31. He's looking to go to 38 hours per week. So this is the information he got for you.
So we are looking to go to the personnel board
Yep.
and have them reassess his position to expand the hours?
Yes, I think we have to have Bob, I think we generate a PRF.
Yeah.
And let's send it to Bob and send it to FinCom, and then on the other side, I said, well, if we're looking at the fees, how do we compare with the fees in comparison to the surrounding communities? And he reviewed that as well, and that's on the last page here. And some of the fees, that if he bumps them to $75, it's hard to read there in the yellow.
At the end of the printer, yeah, the red ran out, huh?
Yeah, yeah, and if you increase them to be reasonable with the surrounding communities, it can bring in additional, I can't read it on this copy here.
It's a minimum, I mean, I would, very conservative, a minimum of 3805. A lot of people won't put down, you go into a minimum $75 permit, which is what a lot of, towns will do, anywhere from 50 to, 80. It makes it more realistic with a lot of permits that come in, so it's hard to judge, depending on what somebody wants to put down the cost of the project's gonna be. But I, base that, it's a minimum of one inspection for any permit taken out, and plumbing and electrical is 60 per inspection, so, basically the town should get, to cover the time you're paying me for it, a minimum of 75 per permit.
Well, we discussed this a year ago, because we could see this was developing.
Right, but now we get the data to show that the revenue's there because he's putting in the hours, bringing in, it just shows the job requires more than, I think, 31 hours, so.
Do I hear a motion to submit a request to the personnel board?
I've got a question, and I've supported increasing it right along, but I'm going to be a devil's advocate here. I don't know that we want to base it on fees going up, because if they go down, somebody's going to say, well, do you want to decrease your hours?
Right.
So we got to make sure we do this for the right reason behind
Well,
it.
there's also a major missing ingredient in this.
But you know how people are going to
I
come
know,
up?
and let me say what the missing agreement is. It's the fact that he does code enforcement.
Yeah.
And there is no revenue in code enforcement. And it's time consuming.
And that's, I think, a lot of what he put right in here, the zoning enforcement and all that.
Yes.
Correct.
So
Yes.
if we push this forward, I think we should do it with all of that included, not just based on the fees went up.
I was hitting all three of those.
Okay, yeah.
Showing how the job has increased, just, if the revenue's increasing, the hours are increasing.
Yep.
And then again, you get the code enforcement, and then, of course, if we have a slight increase in some of the fees, I'm just saying all that combined should make sense.
Yeah, and obviously, we tried to do that at the last town meeting. So where are we going to get the funding from, saying if it gets upgraded by the PQB?
Well, if he gets upgraded by the PQB, then the next thing that has to happen is the finance committee is going to come back and say, we don't have the funding for it.
Yep.
And then we have to start trying to figure out what we're going to do with funding. But let's get the upgrade first. And that way there, we can look at maybe free cash, something of that nature.
Okay.
Or maybe there's a transfer that we can do out of some expense account or something like that.
But just talking it through, if we get the upgrade and it says it has to be paid, or we behind the eight ball, then that we've got to find the funds somewhere.
Right.
And that means we may be taking from somebody to give to somebody else. And that ball is just going to roll downhill. I think we need to have a plan in place. I don't think we disagree. We just need to make sure the funding is available so we don't have to.
Well, we do not have any incentive budget in this town for employees. So therefore, we do not have any uncommitted cash, capital, whatever you want to phrase it. So that means we are tied to the fact of looking at things like free cash, which DOR has told us we should not be using for salaries.
Absolutely. What does your budget look like, Tom? Is there any funds that are able to be taken from somewhere within your budget now?
Not really. I mean, I bring in close to double what,
Yeah.
the budget is. Not quite double, but.
Yeah, again, I don't think any of us disagree. We're just trying to get a funding source. for it.
Right, but as far as the training and all that's required, pretty much it's all, figured in and accounted
Is there
for.
any line item for wages for when you cover for others or vice versa? No?
No, not
You
really.
don't have a huge budget, I
Right,
understand.
right.
There is the other option, and that is, we move forward with this, it gets approved, we know we have a shortfall, which would mean either a furlough or end-of-year transfer to balance that budget out.
Yeah, but giving Tom an increase and then saying you gotta take a furlough somehow doesn't quite.
Oh, I know,
That's what I mean, we gotta think this through before we vote.
Well, here we go back to the discussion again about the fact of, we have no incentive budget for employees in town.
Right.
And that causes us, when we lock into our budgets, that, the only way he would look at a mechanism of a pay increase would be that he would have to wait until next July.
But if PQB says, no, this is where he should be right now.
Well, I don't understand. I mean, he's not on a salary, he's on a hourly rate. Is that correct?
No, it's a salary.
It is a salary
It is a
position.
salary.
They have it,
Based on
And it was
31
based on 31 hours.
it's based on 31 hours. So if he hits 31 hours, does he
Go home.
stop? Does he, and who would handle that, and how would that affect the
I mean, on
income
a
side?
salary, pure salary is your work and the amount of hours that you're working.
Okay, I thought he was on an hourly.
But that's usually based on a 40-hour-a-week salary.
Right.
You know, you don't put somebody on a part-time salary, then say, work all the hours you can.
Can I ask you a couple questions? How do you account for the change in the fees from 2015 to 16? Is
Well,
that
we
sheer
actually had this
volume?
increase. This increase was approved in January of 2015. Well, so that would have been 15, I apologize.
That's
We
a
did the
huge
prior year, however,
He's-
I was out all the time. I mean, I was out driving around, I was,
You know, I'm
I
saying
mean,
the fees collected go from one year, 55,000 to 91,000, but the
He's been-
following year after that, it only goes 91 to 100.
there was a lot of things that required a permit that, you know.
So it's sheer
weren't-
volume?
Yeah,
There's nothing else behind that
No.
huge increase in 1 year?
no, there's
Sheer
just more
volume.
permits, more,
But wasn't it also sheer volume that you're going out finding versus stuff that wasn't being found before?
right.
Yeah, that's what I was
Yes.
asking, basically. Was there anything else behind that besides just the number of permits?
Catching up what wasn't caught
Right.
before.
Right, correct.
And the other question is, going from 31 to 38, are there any changes in non-salary benefits? Would it be additional charges in terms of any other fees to the town, in terms of benefits or anything like that?
More vacation, more, you know, what you accrue, you'll get more of that.
Right, but nothing other than that, in terms of insurance or anything?
No.
So it's just a difference in the
Once he
31
jumped,
to 38 rate?
once he got over that 19 to 20 hours a week, then it was a full package.
Mhm.
Questions in front of the board?
I guess my feeling is we need to plan this out. I know somebody's going to come to us and say, yeah, you voted it in, but you didn't figure out how to pay. And to me, that's not what we should be doing. We should figure this out in its entirety. Well, unless we have a motion, and Tom can weigh in too, is that we send it to the PQB, and if it's approved for 38, that would be pending us finding funding before it went into effect. If not, we couldn't find the funding, then it would stay at 31. Doesn't hurt you that way, just gives us a way to push it forward.
May I ask a question? Why, we have a finance committee. That finance committee is supposed to be advising us. Why don't we not submit to the finance committee that this is our concern and ask them if they have a funding mechanism to address this?
We can do that, but I got to remember back to the town meeting, but weren't they the ones that cut this on the floor? This was part of those cuts that they went through? So we tried to get it through then. And I don't know that they have any funding methods. They review the budgets. They don't have funding at their, you know, I mean, they could say take from here and give to there, but that's not a good solution, just like we could say
Well,
that.
that's the same thing we're going to end up with.
Well, and that's my whole point. Let's not get into that predicament. So, like I said, if there was a motion pending that we find the financing, I'm good with that. At least that would get them to here saying you deserve this. Now we got to work to figure it out.
Are you making that motion?
I'll make the motion that we send this to the PQB for review and revisions if necessary, but it will be on hold pending the select board finding funding to fund the additional roughly $12,000. If that makes sense. If not, tell me.
Who sets the inspection fees at the select board?
You approve them.
Yeah, we
Select
approve
board.
it. He brings them forward.
With those changes, we could fund part of this.
Well, the funds don't go.
They go back
Directly
to,
there.
Right.
I know, but if you're looking, but you'll have money coming in. I know it's not allocated directly to that.
but this year we'd have to find that money from some other source. We can't look at it as, you know, he has no revolving account, so therefore it can't go that way.
This was previously presented to the voters. Was it not then sent to PQB first for What was submitted then that wasn't approved?
I don't recall.
Well, we put it in the town budget as a line item, and we differed from the finance committee, and when they looked for more money for Norris School, they pulled salary increases back, the fire chief and several others, saying that that was too big of an increase, in their opinion, and then they reallocated that money to the Norris School. So
So you weren't trying to rescore the position, you were simply increasing the salary?
Based-
Not the hours at the time?
Increasing the hours.
The hours too.
Increasing the- okay.
Basically the same thing, because we knew what was happening.
Right, but you weren't recommending that it go to be rescored at PQB at the time, it was simply a salary and hours
But
increase.
that would have happened if the money was there.
Right.
We wouldn't
Oh,
be
so you're going
doing-
for the money first and then having it?
That would have been,
But also, we weren't rescoring the job, we were just acknowledging that it was taking more time than was allocated. The job was the same, it's just the time to do the job, based
We have
on the facts.
PQB review the job and saying, do they honestly think it can be done within 31 hours? Or are they happy with that, or do they think it's different? And then from there, we can decide whether we have to look for funding, I guess.
So let's back off on that a second. Does it need to go to the PQB? Because really, they're not regrading the job.
Right.
We are just trying to figure out a funding mechanism to acknowledge the fact that he is working more than 31 hours a week. So it's really a funding issue rather than a PQB review issue, as we talk about it more.
Mhm.
Does that sound?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I didn't
Well, bottom line, yeah, we gotta find the money somewhere.
Okay, so I'm going to rescind my motion. I don't know if there was a second even. We got the
You
discussion.
get that, Kathy?
Just erase what we said. So really, it's, so this makes it somewhat easier, so it's on us to see if we can come up with some funding source for this $12,000, and I think we should talk to the finance committee, definitely, to see if they have any thoughts on it. Maybe we can have them put it on their next agenda.
Yeah, I'd like to hear from them and see what they say.
do you wish to instruct the town administrator to meet with the finance team?
Well, the finance team, sure, but also on the finance committee next meeting, because Jim and I share that, so one of us will be there.
Okay.
So if he could ask them to put it on their next meeting, or the meeting after, whenever, depending on their schedule.
Will do. I'll put it on the agenda.
Oh, okay, thank you.
It'll be October 10th.
October 10th,
I'll confirm that.
thank you.
We have a selectmen's meeting October 10th.
Okay, then I probably have the date wrong.
I think it's a holiday.
Right?
The 9th is a
Right.
holiday.
You want to do it the week after? Are you meeting on the 16th?
Okay, but you can sort this out.
Yeah.
We can move this
You let
meeting
us know when it's on there?
I will.
Okay.
Heather Pellegrini, 76 Crooked Legend Finance Committee. Just wondering, wouldn't the normal process just be submit a PCF for something like this? If this is what the select board is proposing be done, I think, wouldn't that just be the normal process?
It would be, but the problem is we don't know where there'd be funding to do it.
I know.
And we don't want to commit ourselves to the fact of saying, yes, he deserves this, and not being able to fund him.
Yeah. So we would do a PCF after we figure out the funding. That was my concern, if we don't have funding.
Kind of reversing the process, though, as I understand it anyway.
But if we sent a PCF to
Increase the
PQB and
hours.
Finance, you'd say, where's the money coming from?
Well, right, because
And
Vicki
we'd
Morrow
say-
would have to have signed off on it, that the
Right.
funding was
Right.
available.
We want to give
So we
you-
really just want to kind of brainstorm and see where we can maybe
Yeah, this is
potentially.
meant to try to make it come together
Okay.
rather than,
Thank you.
yeah.
Yeah, so you like more of a roundtable type discussion, so.
Yeah, get some ideas together. So I know it doesn't get you exactly where you want to go,
That's
but
a
progress.
start. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Appreciate
you
it.
very much.
I have a very interesting sentence here. It says, "For any necessary business that cannot wait the September 28th regular selectmen's meeting." I thought today was the 28th, but obviously I've missed out on that too. I think it means October 10th. Is there anyone in the audience that has something that's extremely pressing that okay, then I'm going to move on to personnel change forms. Health agent, Nicole Fletcher. My understanding is that that has been approved by Finance, and that the PPP board doesn't need to act on it, so it's an action of the select board at this point. Basically, we've hired a part-time health agent, and does the board wish to vote to authorize this?
We had long discussions on the last meeting, and we've determined that they have the authority to do that. So I think regardless of our opinions, if they have the authority to do it, we should get it done.
Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Aye. Second.
All in favor?
We want to discuss
Aye.
it? Or,
Aye.
I thought we just did, but you want to discuss it again?
Didn't know if you had any
I
comments.
do not want to discuss it again.
Okay.
So I thought, but, you know.
I just wanted to make sure there was that pause.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so be it. Do you have the form?
It's right here.
Let me see that so we can make this go away and move on to the next. I have been asking and asking for people to keep this on one piece of paper. And no,
Oh, it's just you? She has a thing here, all signed.
take a look at the form.
Got it. Done.
I'm now signing for you, Jim.
Perfect.
Yeah. All right, next thing is one-day liquor license, Devon Denuch. This has been reviewed by the office staff. There is nothing out of the ordinary. It's for Conant Park. It's for October 14th. Do I hear a motion to approve the license?
So move.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Discussion?
I just have a question. Is the pavilion available to anyone who wants to rent it?
I believe so.
Any town, anybody, anytime? I just wanted
If, yeah, as long as they can get in the schedule.
Okay, that's all. Just curious.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 So be it. Jim, you have that document?
Yeah.
All right. The next thing is signatures of warrant articles, September 21st, 2017, P18-12, $272,613.84. September 21st, 2017, PD 18-12, $48,127.04. I signed those so that they could be processed and done. The license for sure.
Yeah, and then there's another one.
Does the board sign that, or is it just the chair sign that?
The license for alcohol, the board signs.
Board, yeah.
Thank you.
The PCFs, the chair signs.
Yeah, that I got, I just wanted to
Yep.
make sure.
Okay.
And if we did it wrong, I get a call from Velda, and during the double shuffle, I lost the second page of the agenda. Anybody got a copy of the second page? Got the second page of the agenda, Jim?
Yeah.
Please, because I buried it in that mess. Why does this look like my copy? And I also signed the
Not
warrant.
your copy, it's, I get the whole,
I signed the warrant for September 21st, 2017 for PD 18-12A, $169,944.84. Now we're moving on to approval of minutes. Select Board regular meeting, August 22nd, 2017. And Select Board regular meeting September 12th, 2017. Has everyone had time to review those minutes?
Yes.
Yep.
Jim? Any concerns? Do I hear a motion to approve the
I
minutes?
have one question about it, and it's just really, it's not a question, we just mentioned about updating the personnel packet. That was a request from the PQB, so I just don't want it to get lost, and perhaps,
Personnel packet.
yeah, so that was a request from the PQB, it's what is given out to employees.
Oh,
And
okay.
it's been up, it just needs to be cleaned up, and so that was in the minutes. And I just don't know if anything's happened from that, and I just didn't want it to get lost. So, do you want me to send Bob an email about that, or?
Yeah, send Bob an email, find out where that's at, because
Okay.
I heard no discussion, at least that I recall.
You mean since the meeting?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, all in favor of approving the minutes? I didn't have a motion yet?
I didn't write anything
Yeah,
down.
okay, so obviously,
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of September, is it 12th?
12th and August 22nd.
Oh, August 22nd
and September 12th.
and September 12th.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
You did well. It's unanimous. The next Select Board meeting that's scheduled is October 10th. The special town meeting, we were advised by the town accountant that free cash hasn't been certified at this point. So it appears town meeting's going to move into November. I would not recommend that we pick a date and time at this point until we've had discussions with the town clerk, town moderator, and everyone else so that we can pick a date that's workable. But we don't have free cash at this point, so there's no sense in posting a meeting. Everyone comfortable with that?
Yep.
Okay, open time for the public. The Select Board reserves a portion of its meeting for public comments and encourages participations as follows. Does anyone want to address the public? Okay, then I got to read this. Open time is a time when town residents can bring matters before the Board of Selectmen that requires a minimum discussion and are not on the agenda. Please try to keep your comments short and to the point. Plan on being allowed up to 5 minutes per person, not per topic, and to speak at any meeting under open time only. If it appears that the topic or topics being discussed will consume longer than 5 minutes allocated, then, at the discretion of the chair, the matter will be placed on an upcoming Board of Selectmen's meeting agenda. If you believe that your topic will require more than time or deserves to make a more formal presentation than is allowed under these guidelines, please contact the town administrator to ask to be put on a future agenda so that we can properly allocate enough time. You are free to ask questions or to make your point for all to consider. However, engaging in active debate with the Board of Selectmen or audience members will not be allowed. All comments and questions must be directed to the chair of the board. All remarks must be respectful, courteous, free of name-calling and personal attacks. Any appropriate language will not be tolerated. George?
They left already.
They left. That's what it seemed like. I was like,
This is not a third rail question.
all right. George, you going to behave yourself?
No.
Okay, I'm used to
That's
that.
the only thing I have left, John. Where are we with the elected versus appointed for the treasury collector? I mean, are we going to, it's going to show up on a ballot? It's going to show up at the main meeting, or what?
I think what you're going to see happen is you're not going to see any action on that until we get into like February or March of the coming year.
Mm-hmm.
And then it'll be up to this board to decide if they want to move it at all,
Okay,
unless somebody files a petition to the board.
all right.
That's where it's at.
Now you know where I stand on it.
I know you.
I hate to give up my right to vote, you know.
I hear you.
Yeah.
I'm just,
I mean, I still like voting for you guys, huh?
well, thank you.
I would prefer that to our mayor, let me clear.
Okay.
Thank you, folks.
Okay.
Ed Gwinner again, Golden Circle. I was at the Conservation Commission meeting on Monday night. I've heard rumors that a couple people have resigned. Do you know anything about that?
I know of no one that's resigned from the Conservation Commission.
Okay. Well, I heard that they didn't want to be on TV, so when I was here Monday night, the chair, before Monday night, was in here discussing with one of the members about what was going to take place that night. And then left the meeting. I mean, is that the way we're going to operate now? I mean, come in and coach the board and then leave?
What chair are we referring to?
The chair of the Conservation Commission.
Okay. So the chair of the Conservation came in and discussed something with members of the Conservation.
With one member.
With one member of the Conservation.
Yes.
I can't answer for an independent board as to how they conduct their meeting.
Right.
I don't know if this board has any comments for that. I don't know what took place. That last conservation meeting, I was not even present.
Yeah. Well, the person that left with the ex-chairman was way out of bounds with what she was driving at. This Conservation Commission is to do with wetlands. She's onto endangered species, which the Conservation Commission has no right whatsoever. And they've created a hornet's nest.
I don't think she's an ex-chair. I think
Pardon?
She's still currently the chair of the Conservation Commission.
Right, but
There's been
she-
no change in the membership of the committee.
Okay, but she walked out. And when they saw me here, the chairman that walked out left with one of the members to have a conference in the hallway. I mean, if they're going to work behind closed doors, that's not right.
I think there's an active discussion going on right now about who has the right to not be videotaped. Is it a open meeting law? I think it's just coming to a head, so I'm not saying that this is the way it's going to be going forward. I'd like that person to be able to defend herself, here. But right now, that's, I think, why it seems a bit awkward, is because I think she's expressed not wanting to be on camera. Basically anybody can request that a meeting be taped. And so I think that's a matter of, there's a couple of boards that are unhappy with the open meeting law and regulations around videoing. And so I think it's awkward right now because it's getting worked out. So I would hope that that's not the way the board is going to conduct business, but it's kind of where it's at right now.
Thank you.
Heather Pellegrini, 76 Crooked Ledge Road. I was hoping not to revisit this, but I, through the Freedom of Information, obtained executive session minutes from your meeting on March 7th regarding a silt fence that was authorized to be on my property on Crooked Ledge Road via a planning board endorsement of subdivision definitive plans, which were filed with the Registry of Deeds. So my question to this board, as I review these minutes, I have concerns. Nowhere in these minutes, Charlie, does it state that our request for reimbursement for the damaged silt fence was retracted. I'm wondering why that was left out of these minutes. And were the other members of the Select Board informed that our request was retracted prior to convening in the executive session?
I can't answer your question because I can't recall. I do know that anything that you had submitted to the board was copied to all board members. So your retraction must have been copied to them.
So why wasn't it indicated in the minutes that you're pursuing litigation potentially because we've demanded repair but yet you have neglected to identify that we totally withdrew any request for reimbursement. How do you explain that? How do you explain that being omitted from these meeting minutes?
This is a open time to the public. It's not a cross-examination of select board members.
Okay, I would just like to bring that to light then. So secondly, another point on this was, it was stated in your meeting minutes that you were informed that the silt fence was erected without authorization from the planning board. Jim, can you speak to that? As far as you're on the planning board, it was an approved plan. How does this slip through something like this? Guys, my point is, we wasted almost $2,000 on a non-issue. Town doesn't have the money to do that. If you'd come to us and said, we think it's unauthorized, we could have showed you our plans, which are in Town Hall too, showing exactly where that silt fence was authorized to be. Net, end of the story, it was authorized to be there. The town wasted thousands of dollars on nothing.
The only thing, I don't want to get into a dialogue here, but when the planning board approves a plan and endorses a definitive plan, there's permitting for curb cuts or trenching permits or anything like that. We don't approve that. That's still something that has to be done.
No, we asked several times what other permits or what bylaw or statute we needed to
That's
satisfy.
that's the way I understand it. When they endorse it, it doesn't forego any of the permitting that's required.
And again, we asked on several occasions what other permits were needed, and there was never any response from the highway department or this board.
I can't understand why.
Instead, executive session costing the town thousands of dollars for nothing. Thank you.
Anyone else, open time public? Okay, we are going to now move into executive session under Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21, Item 2, to conduct strategy sessions, preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel, or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with non-union personnel. Fire chief, pretty much the same thing. Number 2, police union contract. Same thing for, that's number two again, for the town accountant's contract. So all three are executive session meetings, and they are all under Chapter 30A, Section 21. Item number 2, I need a roll call vote to go in executive session.
Roden, aye.
Martin, aye.
Konecki, aye.
Labrie, aye.
Are you coming back into session?
We will not come back into open session. Thank you for...